A single bullet, a stranger's choice, an empire reborn. When Maya Carter stepped between a ruthless kingpin and an assassin's gun, she didn't know she was rewriting the rules of power in a city built on blood and betrayal. One act of impossible loyalty. One woman who refused to bow. One man who'd forgotten what trust looked like until she bled for him. This is the story of how a diner waitress became the most dangerous weapon a crime lord ever possessed. Not through violence, through something far more lethal, truth. Stay until the end, like and comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The coffee was burnt. Again. Maya Carter didn't bother telling Jerry, the night cook, because Jerry didn't bother listening. She just poured it anyway, watched the bitter black liquid splash into chipped ceramic, and carried it to table 7 where a trucker with kind eyes left her decent tips and never tried to grab her ass. Small victories. The Bluebird Diner smelled like grease and defeat at 2 in the morning. The vinyl booths were cracked, the floors sticky no matter how many times Maya mopped them, and the neon sign outside flickered like it was having a seizure. But the rent was cheap in this part of the city, and the owner didn't ask questions when you needed your paycheck in cash. Maya had been invisible for 3 years. She preferred it that way. "More coffee, sweetie?" she asked the trucker, forcing her customer service smile, the one that didn't quite reach her eyes. "You're an angel," he said, and she almost laughed because if he knew how far from angelic her thoughts ran most nights, he'd probably choke on his eggs. The door chimed. Maya glanced up out of habit, her server instincts cataloging the newcomers before she'd even registered what she was seeing. Old woman. Designer coat that probably cost more than Maya made in 6 months. Lost. No, not lost. Displaced. Like someone had plucked her out of one world and dropped her into another by mistake. Behind her, 3 men in suits that screamed money and menace. Maya's grip tightened on the coffee pot. She knew trouble when it walked through a door. She'd spent enough time running from it. The old woman moved slowly, each step deliberate, one hand pressed against the wall for balance. Her hair was silver, swept back in an elegant twist that was coming undone. Blood trickled from her temple. No one moved. The trucker stared. Jerry peered through the kitchen window, then ducked back. The 2 other customers, regulars who came in for the late-night special, suddenly found their plates fascinating. The men in suits stopped just inside the door. The one in front was younger than the others, maybe mid-30s, with the kind of face that would have been handsome if it wasn't so cold. His eyes swept the diner with professional assessment, lingered on Maya for half a second, then dismissed her entirely. "Mrs. Vale," he said, his voice low and tight, "you need to come with us. The car is waiting." The old woman, Mrs. Vale, ignored him. She made it 3 more steps before her legs gave out. Maya moved without thinking. She caught the woman before she hit the ground, the coffee pot clattering onto the nearest table, brown liquid spreading across laminate. The woman was lighter than she looked, all bird bones and expensive perfume that smelled like roses and something darker. "I've got you," Maya said, her voice steady even though her heart was hammering. "You're okay." The woman's eyes opened. They were sharp despite the blood, despite the trembling, gray like winter storms, and far too aware. "How refreshing," the woman murmured, her accent crisp and old money. "Someone who doesn't run." The man in the suit was there suddenly, his hand clamping onto Maya's shoulder with enough force to bruise. "Step away from her." Maya looked up at him. She'd learned a long time ago that there were 2 types of dangerous men in the world. The ones who wanted you to be afraid, and the ones who didn't care either way. This one was the first type, which meant he could be managed. "She's bleeding," Maya said flatly. "I'm a server, not a doctor, but I'm pretty sure you're supposed to stop bleeding when it happens. This doesn't concern you." She collapsed in my section. That makes it my concern. Something flickered in his eyes. Surprise, maybe, or annoyance. Before he could respond, the woman spoke again. "Marcus?" Her voice was thin but commanding. "Let her help me to a booth." Marcus didn't move for a long moment. Then his hand dropped, and Maya helped the woman shuffle to the nearest booth, ignoring the weight of multiple stairs burning into her back. She grabbed a clean towel from behind the counter, ran it under cold water, and pressed it gently against the wound on the woman's temple. Up close, she could see the woman was older than she'd first appeared. 70s, maybe, with the kind of bone structure that must have stopped traffic when she was young. What happened? Maya asked, keeping her voice low. I fell. The woman's lips twitched. Apparently, at my age, gravity becomes rather insistent. You need a hospital. I need nothing of the sort. The woman studied Maya's face with unsettling intensity, like she was reading a book written in a language only she could understand. What's your name? Maya. Maya. The woman tested the syllables. From the Sanskrit. Illusion. How fitting. Maya didn't know what to say to that, so she focused on the wound instead. Head wounds bled like crazy, even when they weren't serious, but this one didn't look deep. Still, at the woman's age, Mrs. Vale, Marcus said from behind them, his patience clearly wearing thin. Mr. Vale is waiting. We really need to. Mr. Vale can wait another 5 minutes. The woman didn't even look at him. Maya, do you believe in fate? No, Maya said honestly, because she'd stopped believing in anything beyond bad luck and hard work around the same time her mother died and her stepfather's true colors showed themselves in shades of bruise purple and break your ribs black. The woman smiled. Good. People who believe in fate are exhausting. They never take responsibility for anything. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a card. Heavy stock, cream-colored, with an address embossed in gold. Come see me tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Maya stared at the card. Why? Because I'm curious. Because you didn't run. Because... The woman paused, something unreadable crossing her face. Because kindness is rarer than diamonds in my world, and I'd like to understand what it costs you to spend it so freely. I'm just a waitress. No one is just anything, dear. The woman pressed the card into Maya's hand. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock. Don't be late. I despise tardiness. Then she was standing, waving off Marcus's attempt to help her, and walking toward the door with the kind of dignity that made her earlier collapse seem impossible. The 3 men in suits followed her like shadows, and within seconds, they were gone. Maya looked down at the card in her hand. Elena Vale, 1847 Ashford Heights. She knew that address. Everyone in the city knew that address, the same way everyone knew not to walk through the Meridian district after dark, or ask too many questions about the shipping containers that came through the harbor at odd hours. Ashford Heights was where the city's real power lived. Old money, new money, dirty money, it all flowed uphill eventually, and Ashford Heights was the summit. You okay? Maya jumped. The trucker was standing next to the table, his expression concerned. Yeah, she said, shoving the card into her apron pocket. Just another Tuesday. But her hands were shaking as she picked up the coffee pot and tried to pretend the last 10 minutes hadn't happened. She didn't sleep when her shift ended at 6. Maya walked home as dawn broke over the skyline, turning the smog-choked sky shades of pink and gray. Her apartment was a 4th-floor walk-up in a building that should have been condemned 2 decades ago. The stairs groaned under her weight, and the hallway smelled like mildew and someone's failed attempt at cooking curry. Home sweet home. She unlocked 3 deadbolts and a chain, stepped inside, locked everything behind her. The apartment was small enough that she could see the entire space from the door. Kitchenette with a hot plate and mini fridge, futon that doubled as a couch, bathroom barely big enough to turn around in. But it was hers. She paid for it. No one could take it away. Maya pulled the card from her pocket and stared at it. She should throw it away. Should forget the whole thing happened. Women like Elena Vale didn't invite women like Maya Carter into their world unless they wanted something, and Maya had learned the hard way that when powerful people wanted something from you, the cost was always higher than advertised. But, because kindness is rarer than diamonds in my world. Maya thought about her bank account, $347 and dwindling. Thought about the notice from her landlord about the rent increase starting next month. Thought about the way Elena Vale had looked at her, like she was seeing something worth noticing. When was the last time anyone had looked at Maya like that? She set the card on the windowsill and tried to sleep. At 1:30, the next afternoon, Maya stood outside the gates of 1847 Ashford Heights and seriously reconsidered every decision that had led her to this moment. The estate was obscene. That was the only word for it. Wrought iron gates that probably cost more than her entire life. Stone walls that stretched in either direction like they were guarding a small country, and beyond them, visible through the bars, a mansion that belonged in a movie about people who'd never worried about a single bill in their entire existence. Maya was wearing her best outfit, a black dress from a thrift store and flats that pinched her toes, but were only scuffed in places you wouldn't notice if you weren't looking. She felt like a child playing dress-up. A voice crackled from an intercom she hadn't noticed. Name and purpose. Maya Carter. I have an appointment with Mrs. Vale. Silence. Then the gate swung open with an oiled whisper that probably cost more than her rent. The driveway was longer than her street. Maya walked it feeling exposed, like there were 1,000 eyes watching from the windows of that massive house. Probably were. Places like this didn't stay places like this without serious security. The front door opened before she reached it. The man standing there wasn't Marcus from the diner. This one was older, with the rigid posture of someone who'd spent time in the military and the expressionless face of someone who'd seen things that would give normal people nightmares. Miss Carter, Mrs. Vale is expecting you. This way. The interior of the mansion was exactly as ridiculous as Maya had imagined, all marble floors and crystal chandeliers and artwork that probably belonged in museums. Her footsteps echoed as she followed the man through a maze of hallways that all looked identical, past rooms glimpsed through open doors that each seemed designed to showcase a different flavor of wealth. They stopped in front of a set of double doors made of dark wood carved with patterns Maya didn't recognize. Mrs. Vale will see you now, the man said, and opened the doors without knocking. The room beyond was a library, floor-to-ceiling shelves packed with leather-bound books, windows that overlooked gardens so perfect they looked painted, furniture that managed to be both antique and comfortable. And in a wingback chair near the fireplace, Elena Vale. She looked different in daylight, in her own space, more regal. The bandage on her temple was barely visible beneath her styled hair, and she wore a cream-colored suit that probably had a designer label Maya wouldn't recognize. Maya, Elena gestured to the chair across from her. Punctual. I approve. Maya sat, her back straight, her hands folded in her lap. Every instinct screamed that this was a job interview, but she had no idea what position she was being interviewed for. Tea? Elena asked. No, thank you. Wise. It's dreadful. But Elena poured herself a cup anyway, her movements precise despite the slight tremor in her hands. You came. I wasn't certain you would. You invited me. People ignore invitations all the time when they're frightened. Elena studied her over the rim of her teacup. Are you frightened, Maya? The honest answer was yes. But Maya had learned that honesty was a luxury poor people couldn't afford around rich ones. So she said, I'm curious. Elena's smile was sharp. Liar, but a polite one. Tell me about yourself. There's not much to tell. Everyone says that. Everyone is wrong. Elena set down her teacup. You work at a diner. You live alone. You have no family, or at least none that you claim. You've been in the city for 3 years, and before that, you were very careful to leave no trail. Should I continue? Cold flooded Maya's veins. You had me investigated. Of course I did. I'm old, dear, not foolish. Elena's expression didn't change. I wanted to know who you were before I invited you into my home. What I found was interesting. A woman with no past who doesn't exist on paper before 2021. Either you're in witness protection or you're running from something. Given that you're here, I'm guessing the latter. Maya's jaw tightened. If you already know everything, why am I here? Because I don't know everything. I know the facts. I don't know the story. Elena leaned forward slightly. Why did you help me? The truth this time. You needed help. Half the diner saw me fall. You were the only one who moved. Maya was quiet for a long moment. Then, because she was tired of lying and because something about Elena Vale's unflinching gaze made deception feel pointless, she said, My mother had a fall. Near the end. Brain tumor. It messed with her balance. She fell in a grocery store and people just stepped around her, like she was trash on the sidewalk. I got there 10 minutes later and found her still on the floor, crying because no one would help her stand up. The silence that followed was heavy. Your mother, Elena said softly. She's gone? 5 years ago. And after she died, you ran. It wasn't a question, but Maya answered anyway. Yeah. Elena nodded slowly, like Maya had confirmed something she'd already suspected. I'm going to make you an offer. You can refuse. There will be no consequences if you do. But I want you to truly hear it before you answer. Maya's pulse quickened. What kind of offer? I need a companion, someone to help me with daily tasks, accompany me to appointments, ensure I don't have another embarrassing collapse in public. Elena's tone was light, but her eyes were serious. I'm dying, you see. 6 months, perhaps a year if I'm unlucky. Cancer. Stage 4. Very thorough. And I find myself in need of someone who isn't entangled in my family's complications. You have a family. I have a son. Elena's expression hardened. Adrian, he runs the family business. He's brilliant, ruthless, and utterly convinced that I'm a fragile antique who needs to be locked in a glass case and protected from reality. I love him desperately, but he suffocates me. And the rest of the household, she waved a hand dismissively. Relatives who want my money. Staff who've been with the family so long they've forgotten how to see me as human. I need someone with no agenda, someone who isn't afraid to speak plainly. Maya shook her head. You don't know me. How do you know I don't have an agenda? Because you tried to refuse my tea, and you look like you'd rather jump out that window than ask me how much this position pays. Elena smiled. Someone with an agenda would be charming. You're defensive. It's refreshing. What does it pay? $50,000 for 6 months, plus room and board if you choose to live on the estate. If I last longer than 6 months, we'll renegotiate. Maya's breath caught. $50,000. That was more money than she'd seen in her entire life. That was freedom. That was a future. There's a catch, she said, because there was always a catch. Several. Elena didn't sugarcoat it. This house is complicated. My son is difficult. His business ventures are not entirely legal, though I'm sure that doesn't surprise you. You would be entering a world that operates by rules you don't understand, and those rules can be dangerous for outsiders. Additionally, you would need to sign an NDA so comprehensive that your grandchildren's grandchildren would be bound by it. You're asking me to work for a criminal. I'm asking you to work for me. My son's choices are his own. Elena's gaze didn't waver. But yes, by proximity, you would be entering that world. So I need to know, can you keep your head down, your mouth shut, and your judgment to yourself? Maya thought about her apartment, about burnt coffee and grabby customers, and the constant fear that someone from her old life would find her, about the way Elena Vale looked at her like she was a person instead of a problem. Can I think about it? Until tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Come back with your answer, or don't come back at all. Maya stood. Elena remained seated, watching her with those storm-gray eyes that seemed to see straight through skin and bone. One more thing, Elena said as Maya reached the door. That NDA I mentioned, it's already in effect. You speak a word of what you've heard today, and my lawyers will ensure you regret it for whatever's left of your life. Just so we're clear. Maya should have been angry, should have felt threatened. Instead, she felt something like respect. Clear, she said, and walked out. Bitte. She came back. Of course she came back. Maya arrived at 8:45 the next morning with a backpack containing everything she owned that mattered. Some clothes, her mother's wedding ring, a knife she'd stolen from her stepfather before she ran. The security guard, the same military-looking man from yesterday, took her pack without comment and led her deeper into the mansion. This time they stopped at a different door, smaller, less ornate. Mrs. Vale is finishing breakfast, the guard said. Mr. Vale wants to meet you first. Ice slid down Maya's spine. That wasn't part of the arrangement. It is now. He knocked once, then opened the door. The room beyond was an office, dark wood, leather furniture, a desk that could have doubled as a small aircraft carrier, and behind it, a man who made every danger instinct Maya possessed start screaming. Adrian Vale was in his mid-30s, dressed in a suit that fit like it had been engineered specifically for his body. Dark hair, darker eyes, and a face that would have been beautiful if it wasn't so cold. He looked like his mother, same bone structure, same sharp intelligence in the gaze, but where Elena's presence was regal, Adrian's was predatory. He didn't stand when Maya entered, didn't smile, just watched her with the kind of focus that made her feel like a specimen under a microscope. Maya Carter, he said, his voice low and controlled. Sit. It wasn't a request. Maya sat, keeping her spine straight, her expression neutral. She'd dealt with powerful men before. The trick was not to show fear. My mother wants to hire you. Adrian opened a folder on his desk, thick, official-looking. Maya's stomach sank as she recognized her own face in the photo paperclipped to the first page. I think it's a terrible idea. Then don't hire me. His eyes narrowed fractionally. You're not curious why I object? Not particularly. You should be. He flipped open the folder, scanned a page. Maya Carter, age 26, originally from Millbrook, Illinois, a town small enough that everyone knows everyone's business. Daughter of Linda Carter, deceased, and stepfather Robert Jennings, currently serving 12 to 15 for aggravated assault. You disappeared 3 days after your 18th birthday, and you've been off the grid ever since. No credit cards. No social media. Cash jobs only. Either you're remarkably paranoid, or you're hiding from something. Maya's fingers dug into the arms of her chair. Your point? My point is that people who run usually have a reason. And people with reasons can be leveraged. I'm not here to be leveraged. I'm here because your mother offered me a job. My mother is dying. Adrian's tone didn't change, but something flickered in his expression, pain, quickly buried. She's not thinking clearly. She sees a stray. She wants to take it in. It's who she is. But I can't have someone unreliable in this house. Not now. Then let me go. I didn't say I was letting you go. He closed the folder. I said I think it's a terrible idea, but my mother wants you, and I owe her the courtesy of giving you a chance. So here are the rules. You work for her. You live here. You don't ask questions about family business. You don't snoop. You don't steal. You don't gossip. Break any of these rules, and Marcus will escort you out so fast you'll leave scorch marks. Understood? Maya held his gaze. Understood. Good. He stood and Maya realized he was tall, easily 6'2", with the kind of physical presence that filled a room. One more thing. If you hurt her, if you upset her, if you do anything that shortens the time I have left with my mother, I will make you regret every decision that brought you to this moment. Clear? It should have sounded like a villain's speech. Instead, it sounded like grief wearing the mask of a threat. Clear, Maya said quietly. Adrian studied her for another long moment. Then he nodded toward the door. She's waiting for you. Quote. Elena was in the garden. Maya found her among roses that looked professionally maintained, sitting on a bench beneath a pergola dripping with wisteria. She wore a wide-brimmed hat despite the cloud cover, and a blanket across her lap even though the morning was warm. He interrogated you, Elena said without turning around. Something like that. Adrian has trust issues. They're well-earned. Elena patted the bench beside her. Sit. Tell me what you decided. Maya sat, the stone bench cool through her jeans. I'll take the job, but I have conditions. Elena's eyebrows rose. Bold. Continue. I don't get involved in whatever your son does. I'm here for you, period. And if I ever feel unsafe, I leave. No questions asked. Agreed. Though I should warn you that feeling safe and being safe are two different things in this house. I'll take my chances. Elena smiled. A real smile this time, not the sharp political one from yesterday. You remind me of myself at your age. Too stubborn to know when you're outmatched. She pulled an envelope from beneath the blanket and handed it to Maya. Your contract. Read it carefully. Sign if you agree. Your room is on the second floor, east wing. Marcus will show you. Maya opened the envelope, scanned the contract. It was exactly as Elena had described. $50,000 for 6 months. NDA included, with clauses about confidentiality that made her head spin. At the bottom, a space for her signature. She signed before she could second-guess herself. Excellent. Elena took the contract, tucked it away. Now, let's discuss my son. I'd rather not. Too bad. You'll be living under the same roof, and ignorance won't protect you. Elena's tone turned serious. Adrian is not a good man, Maya. He's done things that would horrify you, but he's my son, and he's trying, in his own broken way, to be better than the men who came before him. The family business was built on blood and fear. Adrian's trying to turn it into something else, something sustainable. It's not going well. Why are you telling me this? Because you'll hear things, see things, and I need you to understand that people are complicated. Elena's hand trembled as she adjusted her hat. Adrian is dangerous, but he's not cruel. Not really. He's just... She paused. Lonely. Desperately lonely. And loneliness makes people do terrible things to feel less alone. Maya didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. Elena seemed to accept her silence. Come, let me show you the house. You'll get lost for the first week, but eventually you'll learn. They walked slowly, Elena leaning on Maya's arm more than she probably wanted to admit. The estate was enormous, more rooms than any human could possibly need, hallways that connected in ways that defied logic, staircases that led to wings Maya suspected she'd never see. But it was the people that made Maya uneasy. Staff members who nodded politely but watched her like she was a threat. A woman in her 30s with Elena's cheekbones who smiled coldly when they passed in a hallway. An older man who looked at Maya like she was dirt on his shoe. Livia, Elena murmured when they were out of earshot. Adrian's cousin, my late husband's brother's daughter. She lives here, helps with estate management. Don't trust her. You're telling me not to trust your niece? I'm telling you that loyalty is currency in this house, and Livia spends hers very carefully. Elena's grip tightened on Maya's arm. She wanted to be the one managing my care. When Adrian chose to hire an outsider instead, she took it personally. Why did he choose an outsider? Because I asked him to. Elena stopped walking, turned to face Maya directly. Because I'm tired of people who have agendas. Because I wanted one person in this godforsaken house who might tell me the truth instead of what I want to hear. Before Maya could respond, a voice cut through the hallway. Mother! Adrian materialized from a side corridor like he'd been summoned. He looked different in daylight, less menacing, more exhausted. His tie was loosened, his sleeves rolled up, and there were shadows under his eyes that spoke of too little sleep. Adrian? Elena's tone was affectionate despite the earlier warnings. You remember Maya? We met. His gaze flicked to Maya, unreadable. I need to speak with you, privately. Anything you need to say, you can say in front of Maya. Mother, she works for me now. She'll hear it eventually anyway. Elena's voice took on an edge. Speak. Adrian's jaw tightened. The Morettis sent a message. They want a meeting. Next week. The temperature in the hallway seemed to drop. Let me guess, Elena said quietly. They want to discuss territories. Among other things, tell them no. I can't keep telling them no. Eventually, they'll stop asking and start taking. Then let them try. Elena's hand on Maya's arm was trembling now, but her voice was steel. You don't negotiate with people who respect only violence. You remind them why they should be afraid. Adrian's expression flickered, something that might have been admiration or might have been frustration. You're not the one who has to deliver that reminder. No, I'm just the one who has to live with the consequences. Elena turned to Maya. Come, I'm tired. Help me to my room. As they walked away, Maya felt Adrian's eyes boring into her back. She'd been in the house less than 2 hours, and already she could feel the weight of its secrets pressing down on her shoulders. This was going to be a long 6 months, if she survived them. Maya's room was bigger than her entire apartment had been. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the gardens, furniture that looked antique but felt solid when she tested it, a bathroom with heated floors, and a tub deep enough to drown in. The closet was half the size of the bedroom, already stocked with clothes in her size. Simple, professional, nothing flashy. Someone had done their homework. She unpacked her backpack in under 5 minutes. 3 shirts, 2 pairs of jeans, underwear, her mother's ring. The knife went under the mattress. Old habits. A knock on the door made her jump. Miss Carter? Marcus stood in the hallway, his expression as blank as ever. Mrs. Vale requests your presence in the library. She's ready for her afternoon medications. Maya followed him through the maze of hallways, committing turns to memory. Left at the portrait of some stern-faced ancestor. Right past the room with the grand piano no one seemed to play. Down the stairs with the wrought iron railing that probably cost more than a car. Elena was back in her wingback chair, a small pharmacy's worth of pill bottles arranged on the side table next to her tea. She looked frailer than she had that morning, like the walk through the house had drained something essential. Close the door, Elena said. Maya did. Now. Let's be honest with each other. Elena picked up one of the bottles, squinted at the label. I hired you because you helped me when no one else would. That was kindness. But kindness alone won't keep you alive in this house. So I need to know, can you be more than kind? Can you be smart? I'm still here, aren't I? Barely. Elena unscrewed the cap, shook out 2 pills. You met Livia today. What did you think of her? Maya thought about the woman's cold smile, the way her eyes had assessed and dismissed in the same glance. She doesn't want me here. Good, you're paying attention. Elena swallowed the pills dry, winced. Livia's been angling for control of the estate since my husband died. She thinks because she has Vale blood, she deserves a seat at the table. What she doesn't understand is that blood means nothing if you don't have the spine to back it up. And she doesn't? Oh, she has spine, just not the kind that matters. Elena set the bottle down, reached for another. She's ambitious, clever, utterly without loyalty except to herself. Adrian tolerates her because she's family and because she's useful when he needs someone to manage the social obligations he despises. But he doesn't trust her. No one does. Then why keep her around? Because it's easier to watch your enemies when they're under your roof. Elena's hands were shaking worse now. She fumbled with the cap, dropped it. Damn it! Maya retrieved the cap, opened the bottle, counted out the correct dosage according to the label. Elena watched her with those sharp gray eyes. You've done this before, Elena observed. My mother, near the end. Morphine, mostly. Anti-nausea meds, stuff to help her sleep. Maya handed over the pills. She hated needing help. Made her feel weak. She was right to hate it. Elena swallowed the medication. There's nothing dignified about dying slowly. People lie and say there is, but it's just rot dressed up as wisdom. She leaned back in her chair, exhaustion settling over her features like a mask. Tell me about your stepfather. Maya's spine went rigid. That's not part of the job description. Consider it part of the vetting process. I told you, I need to know if you're smart. Smart people learn from their mistakes. So tell me, what did you learn from yours? The silence stretched long enough that Maya almost walked out. Almost. But there was something in Elena's expression that wasn't pity or curiosity. It was recognition. I learned that people who smile the most are usually the ones you should run from, Maya said finally. I learned that no one's coming to save you, so you better save yourself. And I learned that sometimes the only way to survive is to disappear. Elena nodded slowly. And that's what you did. Disappeared. He would have killed me if I stayed. I believe you. Elena's voice was gentle now, the sharpness momentarily absent. Adrian thinks I hired you out of sentimentality. He's wrong. I hired you because you survived something that should have broken you, and you did it without becoming cruel. That's rare. That's valuable. Valuable for what? For reminding my son that there are still people in the world who haven't forgotten how to be human. Elena's eyes drifted closed. I'm tired now. Come back at 6. I'll want dinner in my room, and I'll want company while I eat it. The kitchen staff will have prepared something bland and joyless. They always do. Order us something decent from that Italian place on Marchmont Street, Adrian's account. He can afford it. Maya stood. Anything else? Yes. Stay away from the West Wing. That's where Adrian's offices are. The people who work there aren't house staff. They're the other kind. And they don't have my rules about manners. The warning hung in the air as Maya left. The next 3 days followed a pattern. Maya woke at 7, helped Elena with morning medications, accompanied her on slow walks through the gardens, read to her when the pain medication made Elena too drowsy to focus on the pages herself. They ate lunch together, usually in the library or Elena's private sitting room. Afternoons were for correspondence. Letters Elena dictated while Maya wrote them out in her careful handwriting, since Elena's tremors made her own script illegible. It should have been peaceful. It wasn't. The house had a pulse, a rhythm of controlled chaos that Maya couldn't quite identify. Men in expensive suits came and went at odd hours. Conversation stopped when she entered rooms. Marcus appeared and disappeared like a ghost with military training. And Adrian was everywhere and nowhere. Maya would catch glimpses of him in hallways, hear his voice through closed doors, feel the weight of his presence even in rooms he'd left hours ago. He never spoke to her directly, but she felt watched, assessed. On the fourth day, Livia cornered her. Maya was in the kitchen, a massive industrial space that looked like it belonged in a restaurant, trying to convince the head chef that Mrs. Vale wanted actual flavor in her food, not whatever salt-free, joy-free mush he'd been serving. "That won't work," a voice said from behind her. Maya turned. Livia leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, wearing a cream-colored dress that probably cost more than Maya's old rent. Up close, she was beautiful in a way that looked expensive. Precise makeup, hair that fell in perfect waves, jewelry that was understated but clearly real. "Chef Marcus is very particular about Mrs. Vale's diet," Livia continued. "He won't deviate from the meal plan approved by her doctors." "Mrs. Vale is dying," Maya said flatly. At this point, letting her eat what she wants seems more important than following some chart. Livia's smile didn't reach her eyes. "You've been here less than a week, and you think you know what's best for her?" "I think making her last few months miserable in the name of prolonging them is cruel." "Interesting perspective." Livia pushed off the doorframe, moved closer. "Tell me, Maya, what exactly did you do before you became a professional companion?" The background check was remarkably thin. "I waited tables. For 3 years. And before that?" "Nothing that concerns you." "Everything in this house concerns me. I'm family." Livia's tone was light, conversational, but her eyes were calculating. "You're not. You're an employee, a temporary one at that. So let me give you some advice. Don't get comfortable. Don't get attached. And don't think for a second that Elena's fondness for you means anything beyond her sentimental nature. She collects strays. She always has. And when they stop being useful, she moves on." Maya held her ground. "Is that what happened to you?" Livia's expression frosted over. "Excuse me? You live here. You work here. But you're not in charge, are you? For all that Vale blood, you're still waiting for permission." Maya paused. "Must be frustrating." For a moment, Livia's mask slipped, and Maya saw something ugly underneath: rage, resentment, ambition sharp enough to cut. Then it was gone, replaced by that cold smile. "Enjoy your time here," Livia said softly. "I'm sure it'll be memorable." She left, her heels clicking against the marble floors like gunshots. Chef Marcus cleared his throat. "I'll prepare Mrs. Vale's favorite, the ossobuco. Don't tell the doctors." Maya released a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. "Thank you." "Miss Carter?" Marcus's expression was grave. "Be careful with Miss Livia. She doesn't forget slights." "Noted." But as Maya carried the tray up to Elena's room an hour later, she couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just made an enemy she couldn't afford. Elena was having a bad day. Maya could tell from the way she was curled in her chair, blankets piled around her despite the warm afternoon, her skin gray beneath its careful makeup. "You should be in bed," Maya said, setting down the tray. "I should be a lot of things. Younger, healthier, less dying." Elena's voice was thready. "Bed makes it feel real. At least in the chair, I can pretend I'm just resting." Maya pulled a chair closer, sat. "The chef made your ossobuco." "Did he?" Elena's eyes brightened fractionally. "How did you manage that?" "I told him you were dying and might as well enjoy it." Elena laughed, a real laugh that turned into a cough, that turned into something worse. Maya grabbed the water glass, held it steady, while Elena sipped. "You're going to get yourself fired," Elena said when she could breathe again. "You can't fire me. We have a contract." "Adrian can." "Let him try." Maya uncovered the dish, and the smell of braised meat and wine filled the room. "Can you eat?" "I can try." Maya cut the meat into small pieces, the way she'd done for her mother when swallowing became difficult. Elena ate slowly, each bite an effort, but she ate. That felt like a small victory. "I had a daughter once," Elena said suddenly. "Before Adrian. She died when she was 6. Pneumonia. We had money. We had doctors. We had everything except a cure." She set down her fork, stared at nothing. "People told me I'd have other children, as if she was replaceable, as if grief was a phase I'd grow out of instead of something I'd carry forever." Maya didn't know what to say, so she stayed quiet. "I see her in you sometimes," Elena continued. "Not physically, but in the way you move through the world, careful, watching, waiting for the next blow. She looked at Maya then, really looked. She would have been 38 now. I wonder who she would have become. I'm sorry, Maya said, because what else was there? Don't be. It was a lifetime ago. But Elena's eyes were wet. I'm telling you this because I need you to understand something. Adrian is the way he is because he grew up knowing he was a replacement. Not consciously. I never said it, never even thought it out loud. But children know. They feel the weight of the ghost they're expected to fill, and Adrian's been trying to be enough his entire life. That's not your fault. Isn't it? Elena's smile was bitter. I loved him. I still love him. But I never managed to make him believe he was wanted for himself, not as a consolation prize for the child I lost. And now he's built this empire trying to prove something that shouldn't need proving. It's exhausting to watch. A knock interrupted them. The door opened without waiting for permission, and Adrian stepped inside. He looked worse than Maya had seen him, tie gone, shirt rumpled, a cut above his eyebrow that was fresh enough to still be bleeding slightly. His eyes went to his mother first, scanning for problems, then to Maya. You need to leave, he said. Adrian, Elena started. Not you, mother. Her. He gestured at Maya. Out. Now. Maya stood. What's going on? That's none of your concern. If it involves Mrs. Vale, it is my concern. Christ, you're stubborn. Adrian ran a hand through his hair, and Maya noticed his knuckles were bruised. Fine, we have guests. Unexpected ones. And I need my mother somewhere they can't find her. Elena's face went pale. The Morettis? Worse. The Sanchez's. They're downstairs right now, drinking my scotch and making implied threats about territories and respect and all the usual bullshit. Adrian's jaw was tight. I need you in the safe room, both of you. I'm not hiding in my own house, Elena said. You are if I tell you to. Don't take that tone with me. I changed your diapers. Mother, no. Elena's voice was firm despite her weakness. I won't be chased into hiding by people who think violence makes them powerful. If the Sanchez's want to talk, we'll talk. Bring them up here. Adrian stared at her like she'd suggested jumping off the roof. Are you insane? They're not here to talk. Then what are they here to do? Kill a dying woman in her own bedroom? That would be terrible for business. Elena's smile was sharp. Bring them up, Adrian. Show them I'm not afraid. Show them we're not weak. This isn't a game. Everything is a game. I taught you that. Elena adjusted her blankets with trembling hands. And you don't win games by hiding. You win them by making the other side blink first. Adrian looked like he wanted to argue more, but something in his mother's expression stopped him. Maya watched the silent exchange, the battle of wills between a dying woman and a son who'd spent his life trying to protect her from herself. Finally, Adrian turned to Maya. If this goes wrong, you take her through the panel behind the bookshelf, straight down the stairs, through the tunnel. Marcus will meet you at the other end. Understood? Maya's heart was hammering. There's a tunnel? Houses like this always have tunnels. Understood? Yes. Good. He pulled a gun from inside his jacket, checked the chamber with practiced efficiency. Stay quiet. Don't draw attention. If someone speaks to you, let me handle it. He left before Maya could ask any of the 1,000 questions crowding her throat. Elena sighed. Well, this is inconvenient. Inconvenient? Maya's voice came out higher than she intended. There are people downstairs who might kill us, and you think it's inconvenient? Dying is inconvenient. This is just Tuesday. Elena gestured to her face. Fix my makeup. If I'm going to stare down criminals, I'm going to look good doing it. Maya's hand shook as she retrieved Elena's makeup bag, but she did as she was told, applied powder to cover the gray pallor. Added color to lips that had gone almost white. Tried not to think about guns and tunnels and the fact that she'd signed up to help a dying woman, not get caught in the crossfire of a gang war. Voices in the hallway. Multiple sets of footsteps. The door opened again. Adrian entered first, his body language all controlled tension. Behind him came 3 men who radiated the kind of danger that made Maya's survival instincts scream. The one in front was older, maybe 50, with silver-shot hair and a scar that ran from his temple to his jaw. The 2 behind him were younger, built like they spent their lives in gyms, with expressions that suggested they enjoyed their work too much. "Gentlemen," Elena said, her voice steady and cold, "to what do I owe this intrusion?" The scarred man smiled. "Mrs. Vale, it's been too long." "You're looking well." "I'm looking dying. Don't insult my intelligence with pleasantries." Elena's gaze was unflinching. "This is my private room. My son's offices are downstairs, so either you have business with me specifically or you're here to prove something. Which is it?" "Direct. I always appreciated that about you." The man, Sanchez, Maya assumed, moved further into the room. His eyes landed on Maya, assessed, dismissed. "We came to discuss the transition." "What transition?" "The one that happens when you die. Your son's a smart man, Mrs. Vale, but he's not his father. We want to make sure our agreements survive the change in leadership." "Our agreements are honored," Adrian said, his tone flat. "Nothing changes. Everything changes when the old guard dies." Sanchez pulled a chair closer to Elena, sat without permission. "Your mother commanded respect because she was ruthless when it mattered. You've been trying to clean up the family business, make it legitimate. That's admirable. It's also weakness." Maya saw Adrian's hand twitch toward his jacket. "Weakness," Elena repeated softly, "is mistaking mercy for cowardice. My son chooses to honor agreements because it's profitable, not because he's afraid. If you interpret that as weakness, perhaps you should reconsider your business model." Sanchez laughed. "You always did have fire. Shame about the cancer. We could have used someone like you in our organization." He stood, moved to the window, looked out at the gardens. "Here's what's going to happen. The territories we currently respect as Vale territory, we're expanding into them. The shipments we route through your warehouses, we're finding new channels. Your protection agreements, void as of next month. Consider this a courtesy notification." The silence that followed was suffocating. "No," Adrian said. "No?" Sanchez turned. "I don't think you understand. I'm not asking permission. And I'm not negotiating." Adrian's voice was ice. "You want a war? I'll give you one. But you walk in here, disrespect my mother in her own house, and think you can dictate terms? You're delusional." One of the younger men moved forward. Adrian's gun was in his hand before the man took 2 steps. "I wouldn't," Adrian said quietly. "Adrian," Elena's voice cut through the tension. "Put the gun down." "Mother, put it down." Adrian hesitated, then lowered the weapon. Sanchez smiled like he'd just won something. "Smart boy. Listens to his mother." Sanchez moved toward the door, his men following. "We'll be in touch about the details. Enjoy your time together, Mrs. Vale. I understand you don't have much left." They left. Adrian stood frozen, his knuckles white around the gun, his entire body vibrating with barely controlled rage. "You should have let me," he said. "Let you what? Start a war in my bedroom?" Elena's hands were shaking worse now. "That's not how this works. They just declared war anyway." "They declared intent. That's different." Elena looked at Maya. "Help me to bed. I'm done playing politics for today." Maya moved automatically, helping Elena stand, supporting her weight as they crossed to the massive bed that dominated the room. Elena's breath was labored, her skin clammy with sweat despite the blankets. "Adrian," Elena said as Maya settled her against the pillows, "I need you to listen very carefully. You will not engage the Sanchezes, not yet. They're taking our territory. They're testing us. There's a difference." Elena's eyes were half closed, exhaustion pulling her under. "Let them think they won today. Let them get comfortable. Then remind them why the Vale name still means something. And if they move before I'm ready, then you'll handle it, the same way your father did, the same way you always have." Elena's hand found Maya's. "But not today. Today I'm tired, and you're angry, and neither of those states makes for good decision-making." Adrian looked like he wanted to argue. Instead, he holstered his gun, straightened his shirt, and walked out without another word. Maya sat on the edge of the bed, her heart still racing, trying to process what had just happened. Elena's grip on her hand was weak but insistent. "You're still here," Elena murmured. "Where else would I be?" "Running. Most people would be running." Elena's eyes opened slightly. "I told you this house was dangerous." "You didn't mention people with guns coming into your bedroom." Slipped my mind. A ghost of a smile. Will you stay? After today? Maya thought about the tunnel, the gun, the casual threats of violence, thought about her old apartment, burnt coffee, the safety of being invisible. Then she thought about Elena's trembling hands, the way Adrian had looked at his mother, like she was the only thing keeping him human. I'll stay, Maya said. Foolish girl. Probably. Elena's eyes closed fully. Within minutes, her breathing evened out into sleep, but her hand stayed wrapped around Maya's. Maya sat there as afternoon turned to evening, watching shadows creep across the room, and wondered what she'd gotten herself into. Wondered if $50,000 was enough payment for stepping into a war zone. Wondered if she'd live long enough to collect it. In the hallway outside, she heard footsteps. Adrian, pacing like a caged animal, back and forth, back and forth. Hours later, after Elena woke briefly to take her evening medications and fell back asleep, Maya finally stood to leave. Her legs were cramped, her back aching, but she'd kept watch. It seemed important. She found Adrian in the hallway, still there, leaning against the wall with his eyes closed. He'd shed his jacket, rolled up his sleeves. The cut above his eyebrow had stopped bleeding, but would definitely scar. She's sleeping, Maya said quietly. Adrian's eyes opened. You should get some rest, too. I'm fine. You're not. You're shaking. He pushed off the wall, studied her face. First time you've had a gun pulled in your presence? No? Something flickered in his expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. Your stepfather? Maya didn't answer. Right. None of my business. Adrian ran a hand over his face, and for a moment he looked exhausted. I'm sorry you had to see that. My mother shouldn't have let them up here. She wasn't afraid of them. She should be. People like the Sanchez's don't respect courage. They exploit it. He started walking, and Maya fell into step beside him without being asked. You did well today. Stayed calm. Didn't panic. That's rare. I've had practice staying calm when I want to scream. Yeah, I can tell. They reached the stairs leading up to the second floor. Adrian stopped, turned to face her directly. I owe you an apology. I've been difficult since you arrived. That's not fair. You're here because my mother wants you here, and she deserves to have what she wants, while she still can. It was the closest thing to human Maya had heard from him. Thank you. Don't thank me. Just... He hesitated. Keep her safe. Even if it means hiding in tunnels and running from people with guns. Can you do that? I'll do my best. Your best better be good enough. But there was no heat in it, just worry, raw and honest. Maya climbed the stairs to her room, locked the door behind her, and finally let herself fall apart. She sat on the bathroom floor and shook, adrenaline draining out of her system, and tried to remember why she'd thought this was a good idea. $50,000. 6 months. How hard could it be? Turned out very hard. She pulled herself together eventually, showered, changed into the pajamas someone had left in her dresser, stood at the window and looked out at the gardens below, peaceful and perfect in the moonlight. Somewhere in this house, Adrian Vale was planning a war. Somewhere else, Livia was plotting whatever ambitious people plotted when they felt threatened. And in her bedroom down the hall, Elena Vale was dying by inches, trying to hold together an empire built on violence while teaching her son how to be something better. Maya was just a waitress from Illinois who'd been unlucky enough to help the wrong old woman at the wrong diner. Except that wasn't true anymore. Now she was something else, something she didn't have a name for yet. She touched her mother's ring, still on the chain around her neck. Closed her eyes. I don't know what I'm doing, Mom, she whispered to the empty room. But I'm in it now, so I guess I better figure it out. Outside, the estate settled into its nighttime rhythms, guards changing shifts, lights going dark in windows, the distant sound of a car engine starting, the house breathing, waiting. Maya crawled into bed and tried to sleep, knowing tomorrow would bring new complications, new dangers, new reasons to regret every choice that had led her here. But when she finally drifted off, what she dreamed about wasn't guns or threats or scarred men making promises about war. She dreamed about Elena's hand in hers, holding on like Maya was an anchor in a storm. And she woke up knowing she'd stay. no matter what came next, even if it killed her. The morning after the Sanchez visit, Maya woke to shouting. Not the controlled, measured arguments she'd heard before. This was raw, the kind of rage that stripped away pretense. She threw on clothes and ran downstairs, following the sound to Adrian's office in the West Wing, the place Elena had warned her to avoid. The door was open. Inside, Adrian stood behind his desk, his face carved from stone. Across from him, Livia paced like something caged, her perfect composure shattered. "You're being reckless," Livia was saying. "Do you understand what happens if the Sanchezes move against us? We lose everything. We lose nothing if we hold our ground. Your pride isn't worth the lives this will cost." Livia's voice cracked. "I've worked too hard to watch you burn it all down because you can't admit when you're outmatched." "I'm not outmatched. They're testing us. And you're failing the test." Livia turned, saw Maya in the doorway. Her expression shifted, anger morphing into something colder. "Oh, good. The hired help. Come to offer strategic advice?" "I came because I heard shouting," Maya said evenly. "Well, you can leave. Family business." "She stays." Adrian's voice cut through the tension. "Maya, close the door." Maya did, and felt Livia's hatred like a physical thing. She positioned herself near the wall, trying to be invisible, trying to understand what was happening. "You're making her a confidant now?" Livia's laugh was bitter. "A waitress with no past who's been here 2 weeks? Adrian, listen to yourself." "I'm listening to my mother. She trusts Maya. That's enough." "Your mother is dying. She's sentimental. She's not thinking clearly." The temperature in the room dropped. "Say that again," Adrian said softly. Livia had the sense to look worried. "I didn't mean—" "You meant exactly what you said. You think my mother's judgment is compromised because she's sick. You think that gives you authority to question my decisions." Adrian moved around the desk, and even Maya wanted to step back from whatever was in his eyes. "Let me be very clear. My mother built this empire when my father was too drunk to remember his own name. She's forgotten more about strategy than you'll ever learn. And if you ever disrespect her again in my presence, family or not, you'll find out exactly how much of her ruthlessness I inherited." Livia's jaw tightened. "Fine. You want to start a war? Start one. But when the bodies start piling up, remember that I warned you." She stormed out, brushing past Maya hard enough to hurt. The silence she left behind felt heavy. "You shouldn't have stayed," Adrian said, not looking at Maya. "You told me to. I tell people to do lots of things I don't mean." He slumped into his chair, suddenly looking every year of his age and then some. "Livia's right. I am being reckless. The smart move is to negotiate, give them something they want, buy time to consolidate power. That's what my father would have done." "What would your mother do?" Adrian's eyes snapped to her. "What? You said your mother built this empire. What would she do?" He was quiet for a long moment. "She'd remind them that Vale isn't a name you disrespect and live to tell about it. Then she'd make an example so brutal that no one would ever question us again." His smile was grim. "But she was healthy then, strong. I don't have that luxury. I have a dying mother, a cousin who thinks I'm weak, and enemies who smell blood in the water." Maya shouldn't have spoken. Should have stayed quiet, invisible, the way she'd learned to survive. But something about the defeat in his voice made her angry. "Then prove them wrong." Adrian stared at her. "Excuse me? Everyone's waiting for you to fail. Your cousin, the Sanchezes, probably half the people in this house. So prove them wrong. Not by doing what your father would have done, or what your mother would have done. By doing what needs to be done now." "And what's that?" "I don't know. I don't know anything about your world." Maya moved closer, found courage she didn't know she had. "But I know what it's like when people assume you're weak because they don't understand what it cost you to survive. And I know that waiting for permission to be strong is how you end up dead." Something shifted in Adrian's expression. Surprise, maybe, or recognition. "You're full of opinions for someone who's been here 2 weeks. You're full of self-pity for someone who has the power to change things." The words were out before Maya could stop them. She braced for anger, for dismissal, for being thrown out of the mansion and losing everything. Instead, Adrian laughed, actually laughed. "My mother was right about you," he said. "You're either very brave or very stupid. Can it be both? Usually is." He stood, straightened his shirt. I have meetings. Stay with my mother today. She had a bad night. I heard her coughing from 3 rooms away. And Maya? Yeah? Thank you. For not pretending you understand when you don't. Most people in my life are too afraid to admit ignorance. He paused at the door. It's refreshing. Then he was gone, and Maya was alone in the office that smelled like expensive leather and secrets. She found Elena in the garden again, wrapped in blankets despite the mild weather, staring at the roses like they held answers to questions she hadn't asked yet. Bad night? Maya asked, settling onto the bench beside her. The worst kind? The kind where you're awake enough to think but too tired to do anything about it. Elena's voice was rougher than usual, scraped raw. I heard Adrian and Livia fighting. The whole house probably heard them. It wasn't good. It never is with those two. They're too similar, both ambitious, both convinced they know best, both terrified of losing what they have. Elena pulled the blanket tighter. Livia was 12 when her father died. Car accident. Very convenient timing, considering he'd been about to testify against some associates in a fraud case. She came to live with us after, and I watched her turn from a grieving child into a calculating woman in the span of 5 years. You don't trust her. I trust her to be exactly who she is. That's different than trusting her with anything that matters. Elena's eyes tracked a bird across the garden. She wants Adrian's position, always has. She thinks because she's older, more experienced, less sentimental, she'd do a better job running the family. She might be right. You don't believe that. I don't know what I believe anymore. I'm dying, Maya. Everything I thought I knew about legacy and power and family feels like sand slipping through my fingers. She turned to look at Maya directly. What did you say to my son this morning? Marcus said you were in his office. I told him to stop feeling sorry for himself. Elena's eyebrows rose. And he didn't fire you? Apparently not. Interesting. Elena's smile was faint but genuine. No one talks to Adrian like that. He spent his entire adult life surrounded by people who either fear him or want something from him. Usually both. You do neither. I'm just trying to do my job. Your job is to keep me company and help me die with dignity. Giving my son a spine transplant is well beyond your job description. But there was approval in Elena's voice. Still, I'm glad someone is. He needs people who'll tell him the truth, not what he wants to hear. They sat in silence for a while, the kind of comfortable quiet that had developed between them over the past 2 weeks. Maya had learned to read Elena's silences. This one was contemplative, not pained. I'm hosting an event, Elena said finally. 3 weeks from now, a gala. Charity fundraiser for the children's hospital where my daughter died. I do one every year. It's tedious, but it matters. You want me there? I need you there. I won't make it through the evening alone. Elena's hand trembled as she adjusted her blanket. It's also important politically. Every family with power in this city will attend, including the Morettis. Maya had heard that name before, in whispered conversations between staff members. Who are they? Rivals. Older than the Sanchez's, more established, considerably more dangerous. They've been circling for months, waiting to see if Adrian's leadership will hold or fracture. Elena's voice hardened. The gala is a show of strength, a message that we're not weak, not frightened, not dying, even though 2 of those things are lies. What do you need me to do? Wear a dress? Smile. Help me stay upright when the pain medication makes me dizzy. And watch. Elena's eyes were sharp again, cutting through the fatigue. Watch who talks to whom, who avoids whom. The real conversations at these events happen in glances and absences, not words. I don't know what I'm watching for. You'll know when you see it. You have good instincts. Elena started to stand, wavered. Maya was there instantly, offering support. I'm tired. Walk me back. They made it to Elena's room slowly, each step an effort. Maya helped her into bed, arranged the pillows the way Elena liked them, made sure her medications were within reach. Maya, Elena caught her hand before she could leave. I know I hired you to help me die, but I wonder if I actually hired you to help my son live. Does that make me a terrible person? It makes you a mother. Same thing, usually. Elena's eyes drifted closed. Stay until I'm asleep? I hate falling asleep alone. It feels too much like practice. So Maya stayed, sitting in the chair beside the bed, watching Elena's breathing even out, thinking about galas and power plays, and the way survival looked different depending on which side of the fence you were standing on. The next 3 weeks were a strange kind of controlled chaos. The household staff tripled in preparation for the gala. Cleaners appeared in rooms that looked already spotless. Florists consulted on arrangements. Caterers presented menus that Elena dismissed with increasing irritation. Maya found herself pulled into decisions she had no business making. Did she prefer the gold tablecloths or the cream ones? Should the band play classical or jazz? Were orchids too formal or not formal enough? I don't know, she told Elena after the 5th consultation. I've never been to anything like this. Good. Then you're the only person giving me an honest opinion instead of trying to impress me. Elena studied the fabric samples spread across her sitting room. Gold. It photographs better. Maya learned that Elena's version of dying involved more stubbornness than most people managed while healthy. She insisted on approving every detail, pushed through pain that left her gray-faced and shaking, refused medications that would make her too drowsy to think clearly. She was burning through what was left of herself to make this one night perfect, and Maya couldn't decide if it was admirable or heartbreaking. Probably both. Adrian was absent more than present during this time, handling whatever crisis management the Sanchez situation required. When Maya did see him, he looked like he hadn't slept in days. Shadows under his eyes, jaw tight, that coiled tension that suggested he was always half a second from violence. They crossed paths one afternoon in the library. Maya was retrieving a book Elena had requested, and Adrian was standing by the window, phone pressed to his ear, speaking in low, clipped sentences. I don't care what they want. Tell them no. Tell them to go to hell. Tell them whatever you want. But the answer is no. He hung up, noticed Maya. She's working you too hard. She's working herself too hard. Yeah, she does that. Adrian moved to the bookshelf, pulled down a volume at random, didn't open it. This gala. You understand what it is, right? It's not a party. It's a battlefield where everyone's too polite to bring weapons. Your mother explained. Did she explain that you'll be a target? That every person in that room will want to know who you are, why you're here, what weaknesses you represent? He set the book down. They'll smile at you, compliment your dress, ask innocent questions that are actually interrogations. And if you answer wrong, if you reveal something you shouldn't, people will use it against us. Maya met his eyes. Then I won't answer wrong. You say that like it's easy. I say that like I don't have a choice. Your mother wants me there, so I'll be there. And I'll do what I do best, keep my mouth shut and pay attention. Adrian studied her for a long moment. You know, when she first told me she was hiring you, I thought it was a mistake. Some impulsive decision made because she was scared and you happened to be kind at the right moment. He paused. I was wrong. You're tougher than you look. I've had to be. Yeah, I'm starting to understand that. He moved toward the door, stopped. The dress code is black tie. Someone left a dress in your room. If it doesn't fit, tell Marcus. He'll get it fixed. Who's someone? Me. I had my assistant handle it. Adrian's expression was unreadable. Don't read anything into it. My mother needs you presentable. That's all. But there was something in his voice that made Maya think it wasn't all. Something that made her wonder if Adrian Vale was starting to see her as more than just his mother's latest project. The dress was beautiful. Maya found it hanging in her closet that evening, midnight blue silk that caught the light like water. Simple but elegant. The kind of thing she'd never have chosen for herself because she'd never had reason to. There were shoes too, delicate heels that somehow didn't hurt when she tried them on. And jewelry, nothing flashy, just subtle pieces that looked expensive without screaming about it. Someone had put thought into this. Real thought. Maya tried on the dress in front of the mirror and barely recognized herself. She looked like she belonged in a house like this, at an event like the gala. She looked like someone who mattered. It felt like lying. She took off the dress carefully, hung it back up, and tried not to think about the fact that Adrian Vale had spent time thinking about what she should wear. Tried not to wonder what that meant, if it meant anything at all. 2 days before the gala, Livia cornered Maya again. This time it was in the hallway outside Elena's room. Maya was carrying a dinner tray, tired from a long day of helping Elena write thank you notes to donors who'd already committed to attending. Her guard was down. We need to talk, Livia said, blocking her path. I'm busy. Make time. Livia's smile was sharp. Unless you want me to discuss your employment with Adrian, I'm sure he'd be interested to know how much time you're spending in his private office. How many conversations you're having that don't involve his mother. Maya's blood went cold. I've been in his office twice, both times because he asked me to be there. Is that what you'll say when people start talking? When rumors spread about the mysterious young woman who appeared out of nowhere and quickly became invaluable to both Adrian and Elena Vale? Livia leaned closer. This family destroys people who get too close. You think you're special, but you're not. You're just the latest in a long line of people my aunt has tried to save, and they all ended badly. What do you want, Livia? I want you to understand your place. You're an employee, nothing more. You don't give Adrian advice. You don't involve yourself in family decisions. You do your job, collect your paycheck, and leave when Elena dies. Livia's eyes were ice. Because if you try to be more than that, if you try to insert yourself into this family permanently, I will make your life a nightmare you can't wake up from. Are you threatening me? I'm educating you. There's a difference. Livia stepped back, her composure perfect again. Enjoy the gala. I'm sure it'll be enlightening. She walked away, and Maya stood there holding the tray, her hands shaking with anger and something that felt uncomfortably like fear. That night, Elena had one of her worst episodes yet. Maya found her curled in bed, sobbing with pain that the medications weren't touching, her skin burning with fever. She called for Adrian, for doctors, for anyone who could help. Within 10 minutes, the room was full of people, Adrian barking orders, a doctor Maya had never seen examining Elena with quiet efficiency, Marcus hovering by the door looking more worried than she'd ever seen him. We need to take her to the hospital, the doctor said. No. Elena's voice was weak but absolute. No hospitals. I die here or nowhere. Mother? Adrian started. I said no. Elena's eyes found Maya through the crowd of people. Everyone out, except Maya. You need medical attention, the doctor protested. I need privacy. Out, all of you. They left reluctantly. Adrian last, his expression torn between duty and love, anger and helplessness. When the door closed, the silence felt enormous. Help me sit up, Elena said. Maya did, carefully, supporting Elena's weight. Up close, she could see how much Elena had deteriorated in just 3 weeks. The gray pallor, the way her clothes hung loose, the tremor that had spread from her hands to her whole body. The gala, Elena said. I'm not going to make it, am I? Maya wanted to lie, wanted to offer false hope, the way people did when they were uncomfortable with truth. But Elena had hired her for honesty. Probably not, Maya said quietly. Elena laughed, a broken sound that turned into a cough. Everyone else would have said yes, would have told me I'd be fine, that I just needed rest. You're the only one who treats me like I can handle reality. You've been handling reality your whole life. Why would I insult you by pretending otherwise? Exactly. Elena's hand found Maya's, gripped with surprising strength. I need you to do something for me. Something important. Anything. The gala still happens. Adrian hosts it, and you go with him. Maya started to protest, but Elena cut her off. Listen, that event is crucial. It's the difference between the Morettis seeing us as strong or seeing us as vulnerable. Adrian can't do it alone. He's brilliant at business, terrible at politics. He needs someone beside him who can read people, who can be charming without being calculating. Elena's eyes were fever bright. He needs you. He has Livia for that. Livia has her own agenda. You don't. That makes you dangerous to our enemies and valuable to us. Elena coughed again, harder. Promise me. Promise you'll go. Promise you'll watch his back. Elena, promise me, Maya, please. And because Elena Vale was dying and asking for one thing, because this woman had given Maya purpose when she had none, because saying no felt impossible. I promise, Maya said. Elena relaxed against the pillows, some of the tension leaving her body. Good. That's good. Her eyes drifted closed. The dress Adrian chose for you, it's perfect. He has good taste when he bothers to use it. You'll look beautiful. That's not important. Everything's important, especially the things we pretend aren't. Elena's breathing was slowing, evening out. Stay with me tonight? I don't want to be alone. So Maya stayed. She stayed as Elena fell into restless sleep, stayed as Adrian came back hours later, and stood in the doorway watching his mother with an expression that broke Maya's heart. She stayed as the house settled into its nighttime rhythms, as the crisis passed, and Elena's fever broke, and the immediate danger faded into the chronic, grinding reality of terminal illness. When Adrian finally approached the bed, his voice was barely audible. "She asked you to go to the gala, didn't she?" Maya nodded. "And you said yes." "I promised." Adrian sat on the other side of the bed, careful not to disturb Elena. In the dim light, he looked younger, more vulnerable. "You don't have to keep that promise. I can handle the gala alone." "Can you?" He was quiet for a long time. "No, probably not, but it's not fair to put you in that position. You didn't sign up for this." "I signed up to help your mother. If this helps her, then it's part of the job." "Is that all this is to you? A job?" Adrian looked at her across Elena's sleeping form. "Because it stopped feeling like just a job to me about 2 weeks ago, and I'm trying to figure out if that's mutual or if I'm an idiot." Maya's breath caught. "What are you asking?" "I don't know. Maybe I'm asking if you're here because you need the money or because you actually give a damn. Maybe I'm asking if you see us as a paycheck or as—" He stopped, shook his head. "Forget it. I'm exhausted. I'm not making sense." But he was making sense. Too much sense. And Maya didn't know how to answer without revealing things she'd been carefully not examining, like the fact that she looked forward to her conversations with Adrian, that she'd started noticing things about him she had no business noticing, that somewhere in the past 3 weeks this had stopped being temporary and started feeling like something else entirely. "I give a damn," she said finally, "about your mother, about—" She hesitated. "About making sure she gets what she needs, even if what she needs is knowing you'll be okay after she's gone." Adrian's eyes held hers. "And what about what I need?" "I don't know what you need." "Neither do I anymore." He stood, moved to the door. "Get some sleep. I'll have Marcus bring you breakfast in the morning. And Maya?" "Yeah?" "Thank you for caring, even when it's complicated." He paused. "Especially when it's complicated." But then he was gone, and Maya was alone with Elena's sleeping form and her own racing thoughts. She'd come to this house with one goal: survive 6 months, collect the money, disappear again. Simple, clean, no attachments. But nothing about this was simple anymore. She'd attached herself to a dying woman who saw through every defense Maya had. She'd gotten tangled in a family drama that could get her killed. And worst of all, she'd started caring about a man who lived in a world where caring was weakness, and weakness got you destroyed. Maya looked down at Elena, at the woman who'd somehow become more than an employer in 3 weeks. "What have you gotten me into?" she whispered. Elena, sleeping or not, didn't answer, but Maya had a feeling she already knew. Elena had gotten her into exactly what she'd said from the beginning, a world where kindness was rare and dangerous, where power came in forms Maya didn't understand, where survival meant becoming someone she'd never planned to be. The gala was in 2 days. Maya had promised to be there, and she had no idea if that promise would save Adrian Vale or destroy them both. The day after Elena's fever broke, Maya discovered what it meant to be part of a family at war. She was in the kitchen at dawn, sleepless after the night in Elena's room, needing coffee and something to do with her shaking hands, when Marcus found her. "Miss Carter, Mr. Vale wants to see you, now." His tone made her stomach drop. "Is Elena—" "Mrs. Vale is resting. This is something else." She followed him through the quiet house, past rooms where staff were already working despite the early hour. They went to the West Wing, to Adrian's office, and this time when Marcus opened the door, Maya saw what Elena had warned her about. The room was full of men who looked like they ate violence for breakfast. They stood around Adrian's desk studying maps and documents, their suits expensive but their eyes cold. These weren't house staff, these were the other kind. Adrian looked up when she entered. "Thank you for coming. Close the door." Maya did, feeling exposed under the scrutiny of 6 dangerous men who were calculating her worth and finding it questionable. "Gentlemen, this is Maya Carter, my mother's companion." Adrian's tone made it clear that was all the explanation they'd get. "Maya, we have a situation. The Morettis made a move last night, nothing violent yet. But they seized one of our warehouses in the Port District, and they're claiming it was theirs all along. Was it? Maya asked before she could stop herself. One of the men snorted. Adrian's expression didn't change. No, it's been Vale property for 20 years, but they're using my mother's illness as an excuse to test boundaries. See if I'll fight back or negotiate. He gestured to the maps. I need to make a decision today. Either we take the warehouse back by force, or we let it go and show weakness. Why are you telling me this? Because my mother trusts your judgment, and I'm trying to honor that even when it's inconvenient. Adrian's eyes held hers. You're not part of this world. You have no stake in territorial disputes or family politics. So tell me, from an outside perspective, what would you do? The men around the desk looked skeptical. One muttered something under his breath that sounded like waste of time. Maya ignored them, focused on Adrian. What does taking it back by force mean, specifically? It means we go in tonight with enough people to make the Morettis rethink their position. Some violence is inevitable. They won't just hand it over. But if we're smart and fast, we can minimize casualties. On which side? Both. Maya thought about the Sanchez's in Elena's bedroom, about the casual way they'd threatened violence. Thought about Adrian's bruised knuckles, the gun he carried, the world Elena had built on blood and fear. Can you afford to show weakness right now? She asked. No, not with my mother dying and half the city watching to see if I'll fold. Then you already know what you have to do. You don't need my permission. Maya moved closer to the desk, studied the maps she didn't fully understand. But if you're asking what I think there's a difference between showing weakness and choosing your battles. If this warehouse is worth dying for, take it. If it's just pride, let it go and hit them somewhere it actually hurts. The room went quiet. One of the men, older with scars that suggested a violent history, spoke up. The girl makes sense. The warehouse is small. We've got bigger holdings they haven't touched. Could be they're baiting us into overreacting. Adrian considered this. Victor's right. If we escalate over a minor holding, we look desperate. But if we let it slide entirely, we look weak. We need a third option. What kind of third option? Another man asked. The kind where we make it hurt without starting a war. Adrian's smile was cold. They took our property? Fine. We'll take something of theirs. Not territory. Information. Leverage. Something we can use to make them wish they'd never tested us. The men around the desk started talking, strategizing, and Maya realized she was watching something she shouldn't be seeing. She started to leave, but Adrian's voice stopped her. Stay. You started this conversation. You should see how it ends. So she stayed, standing against the wall while these dangerous men planned something that was probably illegal and definitely violent. She listened to them discuss targets and timing, watched Adrian orchestrate it all with the kind of cold precision that reminded her he wasn't just Elena's son. He was also his father's. When the meeting ended and the men filed out, Adrian poured himself another drink. His third of the morning, Maya noted. You think I'm a monster, he said without looking at her. I think you're doing what you think you have to do to survive. That's a diplomatic way of saying yes. He finally turned. You want to leave, don't you? After seeing this. After understanding what we actually are. Maya should have said yes. Should have walked out, collected her things, disappeared back into the anonymity she'd worked so hard to build. This wasn't her fight. These weren't her people. But then she thought about Elena, dying upstairs, holding Maya's hand like it was an anchor. Thought about the way Adrian had looked when he'd thought his mother might die before he was ready. Thought about the promise she'd made. I want to check on Elena, she said instead of answering. She'll be awake soon, and she'll want breakfast. Something bland that she'll complain about and barely eat. Adrian's expression shifted, surprise, maybe, or relief. You're staying. For now. Why? Because I promised your mother I would, and because... Maya hesitated. Because I understand what it's like to do terrible things to survive. I'm not in a position to judge. She left before he could respond, but she felt his eyes on her back all the way to the door. Elena was awake when Maya entered her room, propped up against pillows, looking marginally better than she had the night before. You were in Adrian's meeting, Elena said. It wasn't a question. How did you know? Because you have that look. The one people get when they see behind the curtain and realize the wizard is just a frightened man pretending to be powerful. Elena gestured for Maya to sit. What did you think? I think your son is good at what he does. I think he's also terrified of failing you. He is failing me. Just not in the way he thinks. Elena's voice was sad. I built this empire because I had to. Because my husband was weak and someone needed to be strong. But I never wanted this life for Adrian. I wanted him to have choices. Instead, I gave him a legacy he can't escape. He could walk away, but could he? With the Morettis circling, with the Sanchez's testing us, with every minor family in the city waiting to see if the Vale name still means something? Elena shook her head. No, Adrian's trapped, and I'm the one who built the cage. Maya helped her with morning medications, watched her swallow pills that probably cost more than Maya's old monthly rent. They sat in silence for a while, comfortable despite the heaviness of the conversation. Livia came to see me last night, Elena said eventually. After you left, she's worried about you. She's worried about her position. That too. But she made some valid points. You're an unknown quantity. You have no background, no references, no connections. For all we know, you could be working for someone. The Morettis, the Sanchez's, anyone with an interest in destabilizing this family. Maya's chest tightened. Is that what you think? No. If it was, you'd already be gone. But Livia's right that we know remarkably little about you. And in this world, ignorance is dangerous. Elena's eyes were sharp despite her weakness. So I'm going to ask you directly, and I want the truth. Are you here to hurt us? No? Are you working for anyone besides me? No. Did someone send you to that diner the night I fell? No. I was working my shift. You collapsed. I helped you, that's all. Elena studied her face for a long moment. I believe you, but belief isn't enough in my world. I need you to prove it. How? By trusting me with your truth, all of it. Why you ran, what you're running from, the things you're afraid of. Elena's voice was gentle but implacable. I've given you access to my home, my son, my vulnerabilities. Now you give me something in return. Maya's throat was tight. She'd spent 3 years building walls, creating distance between herself and her past. The idea of tearing that down, of letting someone see the ugly truth. But Elena was dying, and she was asking, so Maya told her. She told her about Robert Jennings, the man her mother had married when Maya was 15. How he'd been charming at first, attentive, the kind of stepfather who showed up to school events and remembered birthdays. How he'd changed after the wedding, subtle at first, then increasingly violent. How her mother had made excuses, had believed his promises to change, had convinced herself that love could fix broken people. She told Elena about the night her mother died. Not from the tumor, not peacefully, but from a fall down the stairs that the hospital had called an accident, but Maya knew was murder. About the way Robert had cried at the funeral, playing the grieving widower while Maya stood there knowing the truth and having no way to prove it. She told her about the months after, when Robert's attention had shifted to Maya, the way he'd looked at her, the things he'd said, the night she'd woken up to find him standing in her bedroom doorway, drunk and dangerous. I grabbed the knife from the kitchen, Maya said, her voice flat. Told him if he came closer, I'd use it. He laughed. Said I didn't have the guts. So I proved him wrong. Didn't kill him, just cut him bad enough that he went to the hospital. He told the police I'd attacked him unprovoked, that I was unstable, violent, and because he was an upstanding member of the community and I was a traumatized teenager, they believed him. But you ran before they could arrest you, Elena said. I ran because I knew no one would believe me. Not over him. Not when he had charm and respectability, and I had nothing but accusations I couldn't prove. Maya met Elena's eyes. I've been running ever since. New cities, new names, cash jobs that don't ask for ID. I've been invisible for 3 years. And then I met you, and suddenly I'm visible again, and I don't know if that's terrifying or relief. Elena was quiet for a long time. Then she reached for Maya's hand, held it with her trembling grip. Thank you, she said simply, for trusting me with that, for surviving it, for becoming someone strong enough to help an old woman when running would have been safer. You're not going to tell Adrian? Not unless you want me to. Your past is yours. Elena paused. But Maya, you need to know something. Robert Jennings is still in Millbrook. I had my people check after I first had you investigated. He's working construction, still playing the victim, still telling anyone who'll listen about his crazy stepdaughter who tried to kill him. Maya's blood went cold. Why are you telling me this? Because you deserve to know. And because if you ever want to deal with that situation, legally, properly, I have resources that can help. Evidence can be found. Witnesses can be encouraged to remember the truth. Justice can be served, even when it's delayed. Why would you do that for me? Because I've spent my life in a world where might makes right and the powerful prey on the weak. And I'm tired of it. If I can use that power to help someone who actually deserves it, maybe that's worth something. Elena's eyes were fierce. You saved yourself once, but you shouldn't have to keep running, not when there are people who can help you stand your ground. Maya felt tears burning, fought them back. I don't know what to say. Say you'll think about it. When you're ready, if you're ever ready. Elena settled back against her pillows, exhaustion overtaking her again. Now, tell me about the dress Adrian got you for the gala. Did it fit? The subject change was so abrupt Maya almost laughed. I haven't tried it on yet. Do it today. Tonight is fittings. I want to see you in it. Make sure it's appropriate. Elena's smile was sly. And make sure my son's taste in women's fashion is as good as I think it is. The next few days blurred together in a strange rhythm of normalcy and tension. Maya helped Elena through her daily routines, learning to read the signs of good days versus bad days, understanding that sometimes the best thing she could offer was silence instead of conversation. They played cards. Elena was ruthless at gin rummy, and listened to old records on a vintage player that probably belonged in a museum. Elena told stories about her daughter, about the woman she'd been before grief and necessity had hardened her into something else. Meanwhile, Adrian's retaliation against the Morettis played out in ways Maya only heard about secondhand. A shipment of theirs got seized by customs. An offshore account got frozen. A key associate got arrested on charges that had been dormant for years. Nothing violent, nothing traceable. Just pressure, steady and calculated. Your son's good at this, Maya told Elena one afternoon. He learned from the best, me. Elena's smile was grim. His father taught him brutality. I taught him strategy. Between the two, he's become something more effective and more dangerous than either of us. Does that worry you? Constantly, but less now that he has you. Maya frowned. I don't do anything. I'm just here. Exactly. You're here. You're human. You remind him that there's more to life than power plays and territory disputes. Elena coughed, winced. When I'm gone, he'll need that reminder more than ever. He'll need someone who isn't afraid of him, who doesn't want anything from him, who can tell him when he's being an idiot. That's a lot of pressure to put on the hired help. You stopped being hired help the night you stayed with me through the fever. Now you're... Elena paused, considering. Now you're family, whether you want to be or not. Maya didn't know how to respond to that. Family had been her mother, and then it had been nothing, and she'd learned to survive alone. The idea of belonging to something again, especially something this complicated and dangerous, felt like tempting fate. But she also couldn't deny the way her chest tightened when Adrian looked at her, or the way Elena's approval made her feel valued in a way she hadn't experienced in years. The night of the dress fitting, Maya stood in front of the mirror in Elena's room wearing the midnight blue silk and felt like an imposter. You look beautiful, Elena said from her chair. Stop fidgeting. I look like I'm playing dress-up in someone else's life. Good. That's exactly how you should look. These events are all performance anyway. Might as well perform well. Elena gestured for Maya to turn. Perfect. Adrian has excellent taste, though I suspect he had help. His assistant, he said. Liar. He chose that himself, I can tell. Elena's smile was knowing. He's been watching you, Maya. Not in a creepy way, in the way a man watches a woman when he's trying not to be obvious about being interested. It's endearing. Also frustrating because he won't admit it. Maya's cheeks heated. He's just being professional. My son doesn't do professional. He does controlled, calculated, and ruthlessly efficient. What he's doing with you is none of those things. Elena paused. It terrifies him, I think, caring about someone in a world where caring is leverage. Before Maya could respond, a knock interrupted them. Adrian entered, stopped short when he saw Maya in the dress. Something crossed his face, quick, unguarded, before the mask slammed back into place. "You look appropriate for the event," he said, his voice carefully neutral. "Appropriate," Elena repeated, laughing. "Adrian, you have all the romance of a tax return. Romance isn't the goal, survival is." But his eyes stayed on Maya longer than necessary. "We need to discuss security for tomorrow night. Maya, you'll have a detail. Marcus will brief you." "I don't need security." "You do now. You're attending with me. That makes you a target." He turned to his mother. "Are you certain you can't make it, even for an hour?" Elena's expression turned sad. "I'm sorry, darling. I don't have an hour in me anymore. Maybe 30 minutes on a good day, and tomorrow won't be a good day." "How do you know?" "Because I'm dying. I know these things." She waved a hand. "Stop hovering, both of you. I'm fine. Maya, go with Adrian. Let him explain the security protocol. Try not to roll your eyes too much when he gets overprotective." Maya changed back into her regular clothes and followed Adrian to his study. The house was quieter now, the frantic gala preparations winding down. In 12 hours, it would be controlled chaos. Right now, it felt like the calm before a storm. Adrian poured himself a drink, his usual, and didn't offer her one. "Marcus will be with you the entire night. You don't leave his sight. If something happens, if things go wrong, you do exactly what he tells you without question." What kind of wrong are we talking about? The kind where the Morettis decide that taking me out at a public event sends the right message. The kind where Livia gets desperate and does something stupid. The kind where any of a dozen enemies see an opportunity. His jaw was tight. "This event is important. It's also dangerous. And I need you to understand that." "I understand." "Do you?" "Because you threw yourself into the middle of the Sanchez situation without thinking. You stayed with my mother through a medical crisis that could have gone sideways fast. You don't seem to process danger the way normal people do." Maya moved closer. "Maybe that's because I've been living with danger my entire adult life. Just a different kind than yours." "Your stepfather." She froze. "How do you—" "My mother told me. Not details, just that you had your reasons for running, and that they were valid." Adrian set down his glass. "I'm sorry. For what happened to you. For what you survived. And I'm sorry that being here means dragging you into a different kind of survival." "You didn't drag me. I chose this." "Did you? Or did my mother manipulate you into caring about us, the way she manipulates everyone into giving her what she wants?" "She's dying. That's not manipulation. That's—" Maya searched for words. "That's just wanting to matter. Wanting to make sure the people you love will be okay after you're gone. And you think I'll be okay? I think you'll survive. Whether you'll be okay is up to you." Adrian studied her face, and Maya felt the weight of his attention like a physical thing. "You're not what I expected. When my mother said she was hiring a companion, I imagined someone docile, forgettable. Instead, she brought home—" He stopped. "What?" "Someone who makes me want to be better than I am." Which is inconvenient, because better people don't run criminal empires. Better people try to make those empires less criminal. Isn't that what you're doing? The legal ventures, the legitimate businesses? That's a long game. One I might not survive long enough to finish. He moved closer, close enough that Maya could smell his cologne, see the exhaustion in his eyes. "Tomorrow night, at the gala, stay close to me." Not just because of security, because I'm going to need a reminder that there's a point to all of this, that I'm not just my father's son playing out the same violent cycle. "You're not your father." "How do you know? You never met him." "I know because your mother told me. Because I've seen how you handle things, with strategy instead of just brutality. Because you're standing here asking me to remind you of your humanity, which means you haven't lost it yet." Maya reached up, touched his face without thinking. "You're not your father, Adrian. You're something else. Something better." He caught her hand, held it against his cheek for a moment that stretched too long. Then he stepped back, the distance deliberate. "Tomorrow," he said, 7 o'clock, wear the blue dress. And Maya, thank you for staying, for caring, for not running even though you probably should." After he left, Maya stood in his study and tried to calm her racing heart. tried not to think about the way he'd looked at her, the way his hand had felt holding hers. This was dangerous. Not in the way guns and territorial disputes were dangerous, in a way that felt more personal, more threatening to the walls she'd built around herself. She was falling for Adrian Vale, the criminal, the kingpin, the man trying desperately to be better than his legacy while drowning in it. And she had no idea if that would save them both or destroy them. The day of the gala, everything went wrong before it even started. Maya woke to shouting, real shouting, the kind that meant something had shattered whatever fragile peace the house maintained. She threw on clothes and ran downstairs to find Adrian and Livia screaming at each other in the entrance hall, while Marcus tried unsuccessfully to mediate. "You had no authority to do that." Adrian's voice was raw with fury. "That warehouse was a strategic holding. Now we have nothing to negotiate with." "I made an executive decision. Someone had to, since you've been too busy playing house with your mother's pet project to actually lead this family." Livia's face was flushed, her composure cracking. "The Morettis were willing to talk. I opened a dialogue. You should be thanking me." "Thanking you? You just showed them we're willing to negotiate from weakness, that we're fractured, that we can be divided." Adrian looked like he wanted to hit something. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" "I've done what needed to be done, what you were too stubborn to do." Livia's eyes flicked to Maya standing on the stairs. "Or maybe you're just too distracted, too busy worrying about someone who doesn't belong here to focus on what actually matters." "Careful," Adrian said softly. "You're dangerously close to a line you don't want to cross." "What line? The truth? Everyone in this house knows you've developed feelings for her. Everyone's talking about it, and while you're busy playing Romeo to her Juliet, our empire is crumbling." The silence that followed was suffocating. Marcus spoke carefully. "Perhaps we should continue this discussion in private." "No." Adrian's voice cut through the tension. "If Livia wants to air family business in front of staff, let's do it properly. Yes, I care about Maya. Yes, she matters to me. And no, that doesn't compromise my ability to lead this family. What compromises it is having a cousin who thinks insubordination equals initiative. I was trying to help, but you were trying to prove you could do my job better than me. There's a difference." Adrian stepped closer to Livia, and even from the stairs, Maya could see how much he was controlling his anger. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to attend the gala tonight. You're going to smile and be charming and pretend we're a unified family. And then tomorrow, you're going to explain to me exactly what you promised the Morettis. Every word, every condition. And if I find out you've endangered this family for your ambition, we're going to have a very different conversation." "Is that a threat?" "It's a promise. Now get out of my sight before I say something we'll both regret." Livia left, her heels clicking against marble like gunshots. The front door slammed hard enough to rattle the chandelier. Adrian stood there for a moment, his fists clenched, his breathing controlled but labored. Then he looked up at Maya. "How much of that did you hear?" "Enough." "Then you know, tonight just got significantly more complicated." He ran a hand through his hair. "The gala is still happening. The show must go on. But Maya, if you want out, if this is too much, I'll understand. You can stay with my mother tonight. You don't have to be part of this." Maya came down the stairs, moved past Marcus, stopped directly in front of Adrian. "I made a promise to your mother. I'm keeping it. Even if it means walking into a room full of people who will use you to get to me?" "Especially then." Something in his expression cracked. Relief, maybe, or gratitude, or something more complicated. "I don't deserve you." "Probably not. But you're stuck with me anyway." She glanced at Marcus. "What time is the security briefing?" 2 hours, Miss Carter." "Then I'm going to check on Elena. Try not to destroy anything before then." She left them in the entrance hall and climbed the stairs to Elena's room, her heart hammering, her mind racing with everything that could go wrong. This night was going to be a disaster. She could feel it in her bones. But she'd promised, and Maya Carter didn't break promises. Not anymore. The morning of the gala, Elena was too weak to leave her bed. Maya found her propped against pillows, her breathing labored, her skin the color of old paper. A nurse sat in the corner, one of 3 who'd been hired after the fever incident, monitoring vitals with quiet efficiency. "I'm not dead yet," Elena said when she saw Maya's expression. "Stop looking at me like I'm already a corpse." "I wasn't." "You were. Everyone does lately. Elena gestured weakly toward the chair beside her bed. Sit. Tell me you're ready for tonight. I'm terrified. Good. Fear keeps you alert. Elena's voice was thin but steady. Adrian will meet you at 7. Marcus has your security detail arranged. Don't leave Adrian's side unless Marcus or one of his people is with you. The Morettis will be watching for vulnerabilities. What am I supposed to do if something happens? Stay calm. Don't run. Running makes you prey. Elena's hand trembled as she reached for the water glass. Maya helped her drink. And trust Adrian. He's been preparing for this his entire life, even if he doesn't always believe it. A knock on the door interrupted them. Adrian entered, already dressed in his tuxedo, looking like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread. The formal wear did something to him, made him look less dangerous and more untouchable, which was probably the point. Mother. He moved to the bed, pressed a kiss to her forehead. How are you feeling? Like I'm dying. Nothing new. Elena managed to smile. You look handsome. Your father looked like that on our wedding day, before the drinking got bad. Adrian's jaw tightened. He didn't talk about his father much. Maya had noticed that. The few times Elena mentioned him, Adrian's expression went carefully blank. Maya, Adrian said, not quite meeting her eyes. We need to go over some things before tonight. Ground rules. I'll leave you to it, Elena said. Maya, remember what I said. And Adrian, don't let your pride get people killed tonight. I'll try my best. That's not good enough. Do better. But her voice was affectionate despite the words. They left Elena with the nurse and walked to Adrian's study. The house was controlled chaos, staff rushing to complete final preparations, the catering team setting up in the ballroom, security personnel doing sweeps of the grounds. Maya felt the tension like electricity in the air. Adrian closed the study door, leaned against his desk. I need you to understand what tonight is. Really understand it. Your mother already explained. My mother told you the diplomatic version. I'm going to tell you the truth. He poured himself a drink from the crystal decanter on the side table, didn't offer her one. The Morettis aren't just rivals. They're predators who've been waiting for weakness. My father kept them in check through fear and violence. When he died, they tested my mother. She broke 3 of their fingers, literally, and they backed off. Now she's dying, and I'm supposed to prove I can do the same. Can you? I don't know. The honesty surprised her. I'm not my father. I don't get off on violence. I don't enjoy making people afraid, but that's what this world respects, and if I can't provide it, everything my mother built falls apart. Maya watched him drink, saw the tension in his shoulders. What do you need from me tonight? I need you to be exactly who you are, smart, observant, honest. He set down the glass. Livia will be there. She'll try to undermine me, subtly, but it'll happen. She thinks she should be leading this family. The Morettis know that. They'll use it. You think she'd actually work with them? I think Livia would work with anyone if it got her what she wants. Adrian's expression was grim. I also think my mother loves her despite that, which complicates things. So I need you to watch her. Watch who she talks to. If you see anything wrong, tell Marcus immediately. You're asking me to spy on your cousin. I'm asking you to help me protect what's left of my family. He moved closer, and Maya's pulse kicked up. I know this isn't what you signed up for. I know you're probably regretting every decision that brought you here, but I need you tonight, not as an employee. He stopped, frustrated. As someone I can trust. There aren't many of those left. Maya should have been scared. Should have recognized this for the dangerous situation it was. Instead, she found herself stepping closer. I'll do what I can, she said. But Adrian, if something goes wrong, if this turns into the kind of violence you're trying to avoid, I don't know how to handle that. You handled it fine when the Sanchezes came here. I was terrified. I know. You hid it well. His hand came up, almost touched her face, then dropped. 7 o'clock. Wear the blue dress. And Maya? Thank you for staying, for caring, for not running when any sane person would have. Who says I'm sane? His smile was brief but genuine. Fair point. At 6:45, Maya stood in front of the mirror in her room and barely recognized herself. The blue dress fit perfectly, moving with her like water. The shoes were surprisingly comfortable. Her hair, styled by someone Elena had sent up, was elegant without being fussy. She looked like she belonged at a charity gala for the city's elite. She looked like a lie. Maya touched her mother's ring, hidden beneath the dress on its chain. Thought about the diner, the sticky floors, the burnt coffee. That had been real. This was performance. But maybe that was the point. Maybe survival was always about performing the right role at the right time. A knock on the door. Marcus, his expression professionally neutral. "Mr. Vale is waiting, Miss Carter." Adrian was at the bottom of the grand staircase, and when he looked up and saw her, something crossed his face that made Maya's breath catch. Not just appreciation, something deeper, more complicated. "You look—" He stopped, seemed to reconsider. "You look appropriate for the event. You look uncomfortable in that tie." "I hate these things." He offered his arm. "Ready?" "No." "Good answer." His hand covered hers on his arm. "Stay close. Follow my lead. And if I tell you to leave, you leave immediately. No arguments." "Yes, sir." His eyes narrowed. "Don't call me that. It's weird." "What should I call you?" "Adrian. Just Adrian." He started walking, and Maya moved with him. "The guests are already arriving. Remember, these people are dangerous even when they're smiling, especially when they're smiling." The ballroom was transformed. Crystal chandeliers threw light across marble floors polished to mirrors. Gold tablecloths, Elena had been right about those, covered dozens of round tables arranged around a central dance floor. A string quartet played something classical in the corner. Waiters circulated with champagne and hors d'oeuvres that probably cost more than Maya's monthly salary had been. And the people. Beautiful people in expensive clothes, dripping with jewelry and confidence, and the kind of power that didn't need to announce itself. They moved like sharks through water, graceful, predatory, always aware of who was watching. Maya's hand tightened on Adrian's arm. "Breathe," he murmured. "You're more impressive than half the people in this room. You survived. They were just born lucky." "That's not how they'll see it." "Then prove them wrong." He grabbed 2 champagne flutes from a passing waiter, handed her one. "Smile. Make eye contact. Let them wonder who you are instead of telling them." For the next hour, Maya learned what it meant to be Adrian Vale's companion at a high society event. People approached constantly, smiling, charming, asking carefully casual questions. Adrian introduced her the same way each time. "This is Maya Carter. She's been invaluable to my mother during her illness." No elaboration, no explanation. Just enough information to make people curious. And they were curious. Maya felt their eyes on her, felt them calculating her value, her purpose, her weaknesses. She smiled and said little, let Adrian handle the conversations, and watched. She watched an older man with kind eyes ask about Elena's health, while his wife studied the exits. Watched a woman in diamonds laugh at Adrian's jokes while her date glared daggers. Watched the way people positioned themselves in the room, some clustering near Adrian, others maintaining careful distance. Then she saw Livia. Adrian's cousin wore red, bold, attention-grabbing, expensive. She moved through the crowd like she owned it, stopping to chat with people who leaned in close, intimate. Maya watched her whisper something to a man with silver hair, watched him nod and glance toward Adrian. "Marcus?" Adrian said quietly. The security chief appeared at his elbow. The man in the gray suit talking to Livia. "Who is he?" Marcus followed Adrian's gaze. "Vincent Rossi, Moretti family, third in command, handles negotiations." Adrian's expression didn't change, but Maya felt him tense. "Interesting. Livia knows I don't want family talking to the Morettis without my approval. Should I intervene?" "Not yet. Let's see what she does." Adrian's hand found Maya's back, gentle but possessive. "Come on, time to make some rounds." They moved through the crowd, and Maya began to understand the game. Every conversation was a chess move. Every smile was strategic. Adrian was brilliant at it, charming when needed, cold when appropriate, always 2 steps ahead of whoever he was talking to. But she also saw the toll it took, the way his shoulders stayed rigid, the careful control in every gesture, the mask that never quite slipped. An hour into the event, the man Livia had been talking to approached them directly. "Mr. Vale." His voice was smooth, cultured. "Thank you for the invitation. My family appreciates the gesture of goodwill. Mr. Rossi. Adrian's smile didn't reach his eyes. I'm glad you could attend, though I don't recall extending an invitation to the Moretti family specifically. Oh, it came through other channels. Your cousin was kind enough to facilitate. Rossi's eyes slid to Maya. And who's this lovely young woman? No one you need to concern yourself with. I'm just making conversation. No harm in that. Rossi sipped his champagne. We've been hearing interesting things about the Vale family lately. Transitions, changes, opportunities. We're not in transition. We're adapting. Adrian's voice was steel wrapped in silk. There's a difference. Of course. Rossi smiled wider. Still, if you ever want to discuss arrangements, formal arrangements, my family would be open to conversations. We've always believed in cooperation over conflict. And I've always believed in maintaining what's mine, nothing to discuss. A shame, but the offer stands, Rossi nodded to Maya. Enjoy your evening, Miss Carter, Adrian answered for her. And she will. We both will. Rossi walked away, and Adrian's jaw was so tight Maya worried he'd crack a tooth. That was a threat, she said quietly. That was an opening salvo. They're testing how I respond. Adrian caught sight of Livia across the room, still working the crowd. And my dear cousin just made things significantly more complicated. Before Maya could respond, someone announced dinner would be served in 10 minutes. The crowd began migrating toward the tables, and Adrian steered them toward the head table where Livia was already seated, looking pleased with herself. Cousin, Adrian's tone was pleasant. His eyes were not. Interesting guest list you've arranged. I invited people who matter. That's what this event is for, isn't it? Building relationships? Livia's smile was sharp. Or would you prefer we hide from the Morettis and pretend they're not circling? I'd prefer you didn't make decisions that affect family security without consulting me first. Someone has to take initiative while you're playing nurse to our dying aunt. The silence that followed was arctic. Careful, Adrian said softly. Your ambition is showing. Better than your weakness. Maya watched them stare each other down, watched the hate and history and complicated family dysfunction play out in the space between them. Then Adrian smiled, cold, calculated, nothing like the brief, genuine smiles Maya had seen in private moments. We'll discuss this later, in private. He pulled out a chair for Maya. Sit. Dinner should be interesting. It was more than interesting. It was torture. Maya sat between Adrian and an elderly woman who spent the entire first course explaining her Pomeranian's digestive issues. Across the table, Livia held court, charming the people around her, occasionally shooting looks toward Adrian that could have stripped paint. And 3 tables over, Vincent Rossi watched everything with calculating eyes. Maya picked at her food, some kind of fish that probably had a French name she couldn't pronounce, and tried to follow the conversations happening around her. Most of it was noise, small talk designed to fill space. But underneath, she felt currents of tension, of barely suppressed conflicts, of deals being made in glances and half-finished sentences. You're doing well, Adrian murmured between courses. I know this is overwhelming. I'm fine. You're picking at a $300 plate of food and your hand hasn't stopped shaking since we sat down. You're not fine. His hand found hers under the table, squeezed once. But you're here. That's what matters. The gesture was probably meant to be reassuring. Instead, it made Maya's heart do complicated things she didn't have time to examine. After dinner came speeches. A hospital administrator talked about the new pediatric wing Elena's donations had funded. A doctor discussed breakthrough treatments for childhood cancers. And then Adrian stood to speak, and the room went quiet. He talked about his sister, the daughter who died 40 years ago, the ghost that had shaped his entire life. He talked about his mother's dedication to preventing other families from experiencing that loss. He was eloquent, sincere, and Maya watched people lean forward, caught by his words. This was Adrian without the armor. This was the man Elena had raised, the one who understood loss and tried to channel it into something meaningful. Then Livia stood, clinked her glass, and Maya's stomach dropped. I'd like to add something, if I may. Livia's voice carried across the ballroom. Adrian's right. Aunt Elena has been a pillar of this family and this community. But as we look toward the future, toward the inevitable transitions we'll all face, I think it's important to acknowledge that leadership takes many forms. Adrian's expression went carefully blank. The Vale family has always been strong because we've been united, Livia continued. And I hope, whatever changes come, we'll continue to stand together. That we'll make decisions as a family, not as individuals. She raised her glass. To unity, and to the wisdom to know when it's time to share power rather than hoard it. The toast was poison wrapped in pretty words. Half the room understood it. Maya saw the flash of interest in people's eyes, the glances toward Adrian to gauge his reaction. The other half just drank, oblivious. Adrian stood slowly. When he spoke, his voice was calm, almost gentle. Thank you, Livia. That was remarkably transparent. He turned to address the room. My cousin makes an excellent point about unity. Family businesses thrive when everyone knows their role and trusts the leadership to make difficult decisions. My mother understood that. She built this family's legacy on clear hierarchy, strategic thinking, and the willingness to remove obstacles, even family members who confused ambition with capability. The room went very, very quiet. So yes, let's toast to unity, to loyalty, and to the wisdom to recognize when someone is trying to stage a coup at a charity gala. Adrian raised his glass, his smile sharp enough to cut. How's that for transparency, cousin? Livia's face went white, then red. But before she could respond, the lights went out. Not a flicker, not a brownout. Complete, sudden darkness. Maya felt Adrian's hand on her arm instantly, pulling her close. Don't move, he breathed in her ear. Voices rose around them, confused, concerned, some teetering toward panic. Maya's eyes adjusted slowly, shapes emerging from darkness. She could see the glow of cell phones as people checked them, could hear staff calling out reassurances. Then she heard something else. A scuffle, a muffled shout from somewhere near the entrance. Marcus, Adrian said sharply. Lights. Now. Working on it, sir. Work faster. Maya's survival instincts were screaming. This wasn't an accident. This was planned, and they were trapped in the dark with people who wanted Adrian dead. She felt Adrian shift, heard the whisper of fabric as he reached for something, probably the gun she knew he carried. His body was tense, coiled, ready for violence. Stay behind me, he said. If shooting starts, you get under the table. Understand? Yes. Good girl. The lights came back on with sudden brightness that made everyone blink. And in that moment of collective blindness, Maya saw Livia moving toward Adrian, something in her hand that caught the light wrong. Something metal and sharp. Maya didn't think, didn't plan, didn't calculate odds or consequences. She moved, threw herself between Adrian and Livia just as the knife came forward, just as Livia's expression shifted from determination to shock, just as Adrian shouted her name. Pain exploded in Maya's side, white hot, consuming, wrong. She felt herself falling, felt Adrian catch her, heard screaming that might have been hers or might have been someone else's. The world tilted, spun, went gray at the edges. The last thing she saw before darkness took her was Livia's face, horrified, disbelieving, the knife still in her hand. Then nothing. Maya woke to beeping, steady, rhythmic, the kind of sound that meant hospital. She tried to open her eyes, couldn't quite manage it, tried to move, and pain reminded her why that was a bad idea. Don't. Adrian's voice, rough and exhausted. Stay still. You're in surgery recovery. The doctor said you'd be okay, but you need to rest. Maya forced her eyes open. Adrian sat beside the hospital bed, still wearing his tuxedo shirt, though the jacket and tie were gone. He looked like he'd aged a decade since the gala, shadows under his eyes, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it, dried blood on his sleeve. Her blood, she realized. Livia, Maya managed, her throat raw. In custody. Turns out she'd been working with the Morettis for months. The blackout was supposed to provide cover for their people to take me out. She was backup. If the professionals failed, she'd handle it herself. Adrian's jaw worked. She almost succeeded. Would have, if you hadn't... He stopped, looked away. You saved my life. You threw yourself in front of a knife for me. Why? Promised your mother, Maya whispered. Said I'd watch your back. That's not what I'm asking. Maya knew what he was asking. Knew he wanted her to admit what had been growing between them. the thing neither of them had named. But her side hurt and her head was fuzzy, and she was too tired for complicated truths. "Ask me when I'm not on painkillers," she said. Adrian's laugh was half sob. "Deal." He took her hand carefully. "The doctor said you were lucky. The knife missed anything vital. You'll have a scar, but you'll recover fully. My mother—" His voice cracked. "My mother wants to see you when you're ready. She's been raising hell from her deathbed, demanding updates every 5 minutes. Elena okay? Still dying, still stubborn. His thumb traced circles on the back of Maya's hand. But she'll hang on long enough to see you. She always was too mean to die on someone else's timeline. Maya drifted for a while, consciousness slipping in and out. When she woke again, it was morning, and Elena was there. Someone had brought her in a wheelchair, wrapped in blankets despite the warm hospital air. She looked terrible, death no longer waiting patiently, but demanding entrance. But her eyes were sharp when they found Maya's. "You ridiculous girl," Elena said, her voice barely above a whisper. "I told you to watch his back, not become a human shield." Seemed like the right move at the time. It was the stupidest, bravest thing I've ever seen. Elena's hand shook as she reached for Maya's. "Thank you. For saving my son. For proving that loyalty still exists in this godforsaken world. For being exactly who I hoped you were. I didn't do it for loyalty." "I know." Elena's smile was knowing. "You did it because you care about him. Because somewhere in the past month, this stopped being about money or survival and became about family, even if you haven't admitted it yet." Maya wanted to deny it, couldn't. "What happens now?" she asked instead. "Now?" Adrian consolidates power. The Morettis negotiate because they lost their inside connection, and they're smart enough to know when to fold. Livia faces consequences, legal ones, not the kind my husband would have arranged, because Adrian is better than his father ever was. Elena coughed, and Maya heard the rattle of fluid in her lungs. "And you recover. You heal. And when you're better, you decide if you want to stay or if you've had enough of the Vale family circus." "Your contract was 6 months," Adrian added from where he'd been standing by the window. "You're at 7 weeks. I'll pay out the full amount regardless. You've more than earned it, but if you want to leave after this, I understand. I won't hold you to anything." Maya looked between them, Elena dying, Adrian trying to be noble, both of them waiting for her to make the choice that had been inevitable since the moment she'd stepped between a blade and a man who'd forgotten how to trust anyone. "I'll think about it," she said, "when my side doesn't feel like someone stabbing me repeatedly." "Fair," Adrian said. "Very fair," Elena agreed. "Now, Adrian, go get some coffee. You look like death warmed over. Maya and I need to talk, privately." Adrian hesitated, then nodded and left. When the door closed, Elena's expression turned serious. "He loves you," Elena said simply. "He won't say it. He's terrible at emotions, always has been. But he loves you. And I think you love him too, even though you're fighting it." Maya opened her mouth to protest. "Don't," Elena cut her off. "I don't have time for polite denials. I'm dying, and I need to know that when I'm gone, my son won't be alone. That he'll have someone who sees him as a person instead of a legacy or a weapon or a means to power." Her grip tightened. "You're that someone. You've been that someone since the day you helped a dying woman in a diner and didn't ask for anything in return. Elena, promise me. Promise me you'll stay. Not for the job, not for the money. For him. Because he needs you in ways he doesn't even understand yet." Maya felt tears she hadn't cried in years burning behind her eyes. "What if I'm not enough? What if I can't handle this world? You already have. You threw yourself in front of a knife, survived, and you're still here asking rational questions. If that's not handling it, I don't know what is." Elena released her hand, settled back into the wheelchair. "I'm tired. They'll take me back to the house now. I probably won't see you again. I don't have many days left. So let me say this while I can. Thank you, Maya Carter, for reminding me that goodness still exists, for saving my son, for being brave enough to care when caring is dangerous. Thank you for giving me a reason to stop running." Elena smiled. "Goodbye, dear girl. Take care of my son. And for the love of all that's holy, make him take a vacation occasionally. The man works too much." Then she was gone, wheeled out by the nurse, leaving Maya alone with her thoughts and her pain and the impossible choice that wasn't really a choice at all. Because Elena was right. Somewhere between burnt coffee and charity galas, between fear and survival, and the moment she'd chosen to bleed for someone else, Maya had stopped running. She'd found something worth staying for. 3 weeks later, Maya stood in the cemetery where they'd buried Elena Vale. The funeral had been massive. Hundreds of people, politicians and criminals, and everyone in between, all paying respects to a woman who'd commanded their fear or their loyalty or both. Maya had watched from Adrian's side, her wound still healing, and seen how they looked at her now. Not as an outsider, as someone who belonged. Now the crowds were gone. Just Maya and Adrian standing in front of a headstone that would eventually have Elena's name alongside her husband's and daughter's. "She left you something," Adrian said, handing Maya an envelope. "Her lawyer gave it to me this morning." Maya opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a check, not for $50,000, for $500,000, and a note in Elena's shaky handwriting. For the girl who didn't run. Use it to build a life, not just survive one. And for what it's worth, I'm glad my son has you. He needs someone who'll call him on his bullshit. Love, E. Adrian, E. Maya started. Don't argue. She wanted you to have it. Said you'd earned it 100 times over. He took her hand, this man who'd become more than an employer, more than a friend, more than she'd ever planned for. I have something to ask you. And before you answer, know that I won't be offended if you say no. What is it? Stay. Not as an employee, not as my mother's companion. Just stay. Live here. Be part of this family. Be part of my life. He paused, and for the first time since she'd known him, Adrian Vale looked uncertain. I know it's complicated. I know this world is dangerous. But I also know that I haven't felt like a person instead of a weapon since you walked into it. And I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose you. Maya looked at the headstone, at the name of the woman who'd seen something in her worth saving. Thought about diners and burnt coffee and running from anything that might hurt her. Thought about Adrian's hand in hers, solid and real. Thought about the fact that she'd already made this choice the moment she'd stepped between him and a knife. Okay, she said. Okay, I'll stay. But I have conditions. Adrian's smile was tentative but genuine. Of course you do. Name them. First, I'm not going to be decorative. If I'm part of this family, I'm actually part of it. I want to help. With the legitimate business stuff, not the criminal empire parts. I'm not cut out for that. Agreed. We've been expanding into legal ventures anyway. I could use someone I trust overseeing them. Second, you don't get to make decisions about my safety without consulting me. I'm an adult. I choose my own risks. That's going to be difficult for me, but fine. Third, Maya stepped closer, close enough to feel his warmth. You have to actually talk to me about feelings and fears and all the messy human stuff you've been avoiding your entire life. Because I didn't survive everything I survived to end up with someone who can't be honest. Adrian was quiet for a long moment. Then he cupped her face in his hands, gentle, despite the violence those hands had committed, and said, I love you. I'm terrified of loving you because everyone I've ever loved has left or died. But I love you anyway, and I'll really try to be better at the talking thing. That's a start, Maya said, and kissed him. It wasn't perfect. Nothing about them was perfect. They were both damaged, both carrying scars that would never fully heal. But they were also both survivors, both fighters, both learning that sometimes the strongest thing you could do was let someone in. 6 months later, Maya sat in Elena's library, her library now, since Adrian had insisted she take the space, and reviewed the quarterly reports for Vale Enterprises' legitimate holdings. They were expanding into real estate development, tech startups, sustainable energy, turning blood money into something clean, one investment at a time. It was slow work, tedious sometimes, but it mattered. Adrian appeared in the doorway, loosening his tie. How bad is it? The Vancouver property is over budget, but everything else is on track. Maya set down the reports. How was your meeting? Boring. The Morettis wanted to discuss distribution agreements. I let Marcus handle most of it. He crossed to her, pulled her up from the chair, wrapped his arms around her. I'm trying to be boring, like you suggested. Less violence, more paperwork. It's terrible. You love it. I love you. The paperwork is tolerable. He kissed her forehead. I have something for you. He pulled out a small box. and Maya's heart jumped. It's not what you think, Adrian said quickly. I mean, eventually, yes, but not yet. You said no rushing, and I'm respecting that. He opened the box. Inside was a key. It's to the East Wing office, the one overlooking the gardens. I had it renovated. Figured you needed a proper workspace for all the legitimate empire building you're doing. Maya took the key, felt its weight, felt the weight of what it represented, permanence, trust, a future she'd stopped believing in years ago. Thank you, she said. Thank you, Adrian countered, for staying, for teaching me that power doesn't have to mean isolation, for being the bravest person I know. I'm not brave, I'm just stubborn. Same thing, usually. He held her closer. My mother would be proud of us, of what we're building. Yeah, Maya said, looking out at the gardens where she'd first really talked to Elena, where she'd learned that kindness wasn't weakness and survival wasn't the same as living. Yeah, she would be. Outside, the city spread before them, dangerous and beautiful and complicated, a world of sharp edges and darker corners, of people who took what they wanted and consequences that came due eventually. But inside these walls, Maya had found something she'd thought she'd lost forever. She'd found family, purpose, a man who looked at her like she was the thing keeping him human. She'd found home, and this time she wasn't running. This time she was staying, building, fighting for something worth keeping. The Vale Empire had been built on blood and fear, but Maya and Adrian were remaking it into something else, something stronger, cleaner, more enduring. One day at a time, one choice at a time, one act of impossible courage at a time. Just like Elena had always said, true power wasn't taken, it was earned. And Maya Carter, the waitress from a diner who'd helped a falling woman when no one else would, had earned every bit of hers.